15 pages of prep.
Yeah, but like...
Oh, you've downloaded pictures and everything.
Yeah,
this is so old school. It's like we actually care about the product.
Because I was like, man, you can't half like it's actually like got enough chops and shit to talk about that it might be interesting. So I was like, probably should put a bit of effort into this one.
I don't know if it's a good look that we think our episodes might be interesting. Welcome to Magic the Flavouring, the Magic the Gathering podcast, where we talk about all things Magic flavoured side and lore. I'm your host, Andy Mann.
Hello, this is Nathan Cancel.
We are talking about robots today.
Robots.
Constructs.
Golems.
Gnomes.
Mere.
Servos.
Doctors.
Pentavites.
Assembly workers.
Oh, fuck. What's another one? Shit! Is that it? Is that all of them?
Scarecrows. We'll get into it. We'll get into it.
We're talking about them all. And why are we talking about them?
Because we've actually kind of like we've hit what I like to think is probably the most futuristic Magic will look. In fact, we had a set that wasn't Magic the Gathering at all. It was spacecraft, the travelling. Because from a lore perspective, there isn't actual magic even really in. Like, so when we're like planeswalkers tapping into the ley lines of mana, that's not happening in Edge of Eternities because there are no planeswalkers and there are no ley lines of mana per se.
Yeah.
So we've kind of, you've got super futuristic, the Infinity Corridor, big space station stuff. It's basically Star Trek. So if robots are like this new horrible, gross sci-fi in my... sorry, that's the cat's scratching in the litter. Deal with it. We've got cats. So if we've got to a point of where it's like, oh, look, we've got this hyper-futuristic... Like, imagine, Ether Drift, when we were looking at the Mech-Tite... The
Mechatam?
Yeah.
No.
The Voyagers.
Medicant.
Yeah, the Voyagers.
The Medicant Corps.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're looking at all those guys, and it's like, well, that seems really alien and very different to what we've used to with our fantasy people on horses and wizards and stuff. It's like, well, actually, and this is going to become very present elephant in the room, or bury the baby with the bathwater, however you want to say the phrase.
Bury the baby with the bathwater?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
That's not the phrase.
Magic's always had robots.
Yeah.
So we're going to now it's an official type in universe.
Yeah.
Because that's the whole thing is we've had the robot thrown around a little bit already. And we've got various different vernacular we can use. But if we've actually got robot now, and if we look all the way back at the beginnings of Magic, past all of the gnome and golem and construct, robots have they been around since the very beginning? Is it something that's like, new into the game and I don't like my sci-fi and magic? Or is...
Firstly, do you remember the cute conversations we were having around Neon Dynasty about, like, I don't know if Magic should look this futuristic. I think you and I were very much on the side of, like, no, it always has done. But the conversation being had was like, I don't know about all these mechs that
Evangelion things. Well, and this is the thing.
And
today,
you're like, calm the fuck on.
Today we're going to go through and we're going to see all the different points in Magic of where automatons have been represented, what they look like, how futuristic it was compared to the rest of the stuff going on. Different planes obviously having different levels of technological advancement will automatically dictate whether they can have like steampunk robots or electrical robots, or they're limited just down to golems and that kind of thing. But we're gonna look at it all the way from the beginning to kind of give a bit of perspective, work all the way to the end, and then we can probably reflect then back on all of the different sets, going, well, what would we actually call a robot if we were looking at Edge of Eternities? I think we'll be surprised at how you look at all the robots in Edge of Eternities and go, well, a lot of these we've already seen before.
Well, I suppose then I'll throw in the first point of contention, the question we were asking ourselves when we saw the previews for Edge of Eternities, and like why we're having this conversation as a subject. Why are they bothering with the robot subtype? They've added this in a world where they have been cutting back on redundant subtypes, right? Like Naga and Snake and whatever else you want to do.
There's been a lot of revisions of certain things.
Why have they chucked robot into the mix now?
Yeah, and how does it actually complicate things? Does it simplify things? Have the previous classifications actually been a little bit murky in terms of... Have they been a bit free and easy with how they've done things, Yeah. So that for me, I think the very... So I've actually got like a semi-script. For the most part, since we're going to be talking about a lot of different cards aesthetically, I'd recommend if you are super into this, like, go and get Scryfall open. There's gonna be a bunch of cards that we're gonna be saying, and it's gonna be for aesthetic purposes. You're gonna probably maybe need a visual aid. If you don't have that, we'll try and use our words to make images in your mind. But surprisingly, in the early years, things were a little wild, as all things are in 1993 Magic.
Yeah.
They did try to throw a lot of at the wall to see what sticks. So we're going to look at Alpha. What I essentially did was I just put in artifact creature search Scryfall and went through every artifact creature, and this list was about 1,200, and I think it somehow missed a bunch off of it.
So obviously Scryfall doesn't always catch every set because of weird sort of like search terms, but if you type in artifact creature into advanced search, you get 1,184 hits. Yeah. So I did that as well, and then I also did a more refined search, which did go through assembly worker, construct, golem, Mir, robot, servo, gnome, thopter. I didn't do Phyrexian, although there's an argument for that. I also didn't do Gargoyle.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Yeah.
And there was one other one that I thought was a bit cheeky.
Yeah. I think as we go through, especially the beginning, it's going to be this is going to be very front loaded. Because going through the first three generations, we're going to have to set a lot of classification of what we agree on as to being like, well, what does a construct mean? Does that fit in?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of, obviously, when you hit a plane for the first time, you're going to have to see what that representation of technology is. Towards the end, back half of Magic's history, there's a lot of return tos that are basically like, well, we're back on Innistrad and they don't have robots.
Yeah.
There's going to be some more nuance than just that, but realistically, it's going to start quite slow. And then we're going to chunk through like 5-6 years in a matter of minutes further down the line. So bear with us as we go. For Alpha, immediately we have... Oh, let me just zoom in a little bit. Clockwork Beast. Artifact Creature Beast. Now, the other one that we have is Juggernaut. Artifact Creature Juggernaut. And then we have two others. One being Living Wall. We don't talk about Living Wall. We'll come back to Living Wall later. And Obscenous Golem. Now, first and foremost, I think Clockwork Beast isn't humanoid. Are we classifying robots as needing to be humanoid?
No.
Okay, we'll come back to that in a moment. Juggernaut, I think, is more of a machine rather than a robot. But again, we'll come back to that. Living Wall, we don't talk about Living Wall. If you look at the picture of Living Wall, it's a mess. I don't understand how that's an artifact creature at all. And then Obscenous Golem is, by terminology, a golem, which I think we can probably agree that golems are animated rock.
So golem is an interesting one, or golem if you want to go down the golem route, because the term isn't without its not controversy is probably too strong a term. So golems in like world mythology, the earliest references to them were in the Jewish tradition, and there's also a myth of the golem of Prague, and the idea is, I think throughout real world religion and mythology, the idea is that they're a constructed humanoid made out of mud and clay. And I think throughout fantasy, when that kind of term got a little bit kind of co-opted, my understanding of golems in different media is that they are like almost like a shell of a humanoid. So it's a constructed humanoid that can then be a vessel for like a soul, which obviously in magic terms could be a spark, for example. I mean, you see in lots of anime and stuff, like homunculus and golems are kind of interchanged to be like facsimiles of a body with a human heart or soul, right?
So because they're based more in like if we move away like from the periodic table, like they're kind of like rock and metal, quite different, right?
Yeah.
And even in Obscenous Golem, the first ever golem that we see, the flavor text is the footstone is connected to the ankle stone is connected to the leg stone. But this is the Song of the Artificer, which I think kind of muddies that, because I don't think you are an artificer if you are creating... I don't know. For me, I feel like a druid or something is more like to be able to create a golem.
Well, you say that. When we move through to one of the most famous golems in Magic, they were made very much by the most famous artificer.
Well, exactly. Well, there we shall get to that when we get to that. So I had to look up quickly when I was doing this what defines a robot. All robots are machines, but not all machines are robots. Robots are machines that have specific criteria that elevate them from a basic machine classification. They have 5 things that they require, and this is by just some random website that I went onto that I'm now sticking to, and it seems to make sense.
ChatGPT?
No. I just went to some random guy who had something to say about the subjects. Autonomy,
right.
Sensory input, software, design and development, and performing changing tasks. all seem like 5 things that a robot, should be able to or should have underneath it to be classified. Like autonomy being a very important one, I think, when we're talking magic terms, because sentience and all that kind of thing. Sensory input is slightly less necessary, but the idea to react to the things around you. We saw this a lot in one of the stories from Khan when we went to Dominaria when he got stuck under all of that rock or whatever, and we kind of see him kind of go through the processes of like what does it mean to feel pressure and
Dominaria
stuff.
United.
Yeah. Software, meaning there is programming within you that tells you to do a certain task. Yeah. So maybe it wouldn't be so much like, so with a golem you might just animate it to have a better simple purpose.
Doesn't have software. A golem,
has like a directive maybe, but it might just be as simple as...
It's not reactive, it just has a job.
Yeah. Design and development, meaning that the thing can, like, it maybe had blueprints that it was then marked up against, that, it's got specifications. In fact, it can develop, it can be advanced, it can be upgraded, things like that. And then performing changing tasks is quite an important one as well. As we go through, there's a few different flavor texts that denote that certain things might be more robotic than others based on the fact that it can perform multiple different tasks. It doesn't just do one thing like a machine, like I don't know, let's say like a blender. A blender just blends.
Also, a blender can't do the blending unless you push the button to make it
precisely work. Yeah. But if you had an automatic blender, that would still only be a blender, so it's more of a machine than it is, say, like a robot. So that's kind of generally. With this in mind, despite officially having them named since 2021, how long have we actually had robots in Magic? So if we continue to look through the artifact creatures throughout Magic... Have I got all of these down here? I do. Wonderful, lovely. We actually start with a really interesting one. The first proper set that isn't, alpha, beta, revised, whatever, is or Lawrence of Arabia.
Is it not just Arabian
Arabian
Nights?
Nights? There we go. Yeah, wonderful. Which, shockingly enough, doesn't have any artifact creatures in it. We look at Antiquities. Yeah. So the Brothers' War
is like the first real sort of moment.
And this is going to be a really interesting bookend. Put a note in this until we get like very, very, very late into the episode. The Brothers' War being where Mishra and Urza both construct different automatons to fight against each other. So presumably we're going to have quite a little bit of robotic representation in one of the very first sets of Magic ever created.
You're saying automaton?
Yeah, because an automaton...
But I would say automaton.
Okay.
I'm just putting it... So the only reason I bring you up on it is going to give you a complex, I'm sorry. But for anyone who's listening, who's going, didn't I just say automaton? Because I had that thought too. So whoever's right is fine. Sure. I don't want to know now.
I try and use it as the more generic term that kind of classifies everything, because I feel like robot and everything sits underneath that.
But I would
automaton. Yeah, sure, automaton. Right,
I can say it. I'll say automaton. I just want
now.
People listening who had my thought to be like earwigged out by it. Like I hear it too.
Sure.
But I think you might be right.
But considering we are following the Brothers' War, we are on the continent of Terrasari, which is also the place where the Thran Empire previously existed on.
Yeah, Meta-Thran were an interesting one that I omitted as well.
So the thing about this, obviously, is that the previous to Magic, which is already now, we're thousands of years in the past from where current modern Magic is in, but thousands of years even before there was the Thran, who essentially were like, they pioneered engineering on Dominaria, and we just happened to be catching up. And there's even like certain people like the Soldevi, for example, that did excavations and stuff. So a lot of the robotics and things that we might see might just be being the current Dominarians within the Brothers' War timeline, finding old blueprints or finding old machines and being able to then repurpose them or try and copy them. There's a bunch of, hey, these Phyrexian things, we know that the Phyrexians are bad, but maybe we can control them. That kind of idea. Like all of the... It might be that all engineering we ever see on Dominaria actually still just comes back from its source with the Thran, even though we don't actually have a Thran set yet. So one of the main... So going through Antiquities, we have a few notable ones. Clay Statue, Colossus of Sardia. Both of these, I'd say, are golems and not robots, being stone-based.
Well, surely they've got a rotted subtyping.
They are exactly good, but golems, we'll go through because there are some golems that I think later on that we can probably agree are actually robots because they didn't have the robot subtype at that point. I think going forwards there'll be a thing of where just because it says construct doesn't mean it's automatically more robotic than a golem is.
Oh, do you think maybe construct robot's going to become a thing?
I don't. I think they aren't, and this is something we'll talk about later. I don't think errata's going to happen for robot, and I think we'll see throughout this why that's true. Dragon Engine is our first official construct. At the time, it wasn't. All artifact creatures were just called artifact creatures, but it was errata to have construct as the typing. The set also has Grape Shot Catapult, which is definitely a machine, not a robot, so I don't think it counts. Whereas a Dragon Engine I would count as a robotic dragon.
Do they have autonomy without their pilot?
Precisely. So I like the fact that it's just listed down as construct. It kind of just seems like it needs someone to be in it. Obviously, we see the Dragon Engine and Mishra combine themselves eventually, finally, in a modern Horizon set to be able to get that card. We in Antiquities always have
it was Brothers War, wasn't it?
Sorry, yes, yeah, you're right. Of course it was.
Because when we talk about Brothers War, we're talking about two completely different times.
Yeah, so this is the Brothers War place, a time set, obviously Antiquities, but then there is
set,
the original Ornithopter, which is in this set, 0-2 flappy thing, and throughout the years it does sometimes look like it can fly itself, and other times just look like a bit of a paraglider. It just looks like something Link would get in the early hours.
Well, isn't Ornithopter not? That is a real world thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, but that obviously everything requires human piloting in the current world. So there's an idea that I think that certain Thopters by themselves can, it's not an equipment that grants flying. By itself it can sit there and flap. Obviously it doesn't have any attack, but having 2 toughness means it at least takes a bit of battering to knock it down and stop it from being functional.
An Ornithopter is an aircraft designed to fly by flapping its wings to mimic a bird or a bat, etc.
Interesting. Obviously, Ornithopter is a card throughout the entirety of Magic. We see it all through the years. We'll probably we can look at some of those later and see like how some of them look more like self-propelled airships, whereas I say some of them have a really skinny frame.
Yeah.
Su-Chi. There are 2 artworks for Su-Chi. The original artwork by Christopher Rush, which is typically very 1994, looks very strange. Whereas if you look at the Robbie Trevino Masters artwork, that is actually from a card from Antiquities, inverted fucking bunny is whatever, quote unquote. It's from Antiquities, but it's probably one of the more futuristic looking robots.
Yeah, they've gone from looking like a big sort of robotic snake head with a brain inside of it, which would absolutely suggest some
cyborg
android.
Yeah, exactly. We'll get to that as well. Don't worry.
Cyborg is if you're organic that has bits attached.
Yeah.
And an android is a robot where you plop a brain in. Is that right?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay.
Which we have one of those in Magic. Again, we'll get to that later.
That science degree I've got's coming in handy. And then you're right. The more modern artwork is like he looks like an Iron Man armor.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Exactly. So that very much to me feels like a robot.
This is definitely a period in Magic. Sorry to keep derailing. Where they just put Su-Chi and don't give any other context within the name. And when you see it in the Magic card frame, you're like, what the fuck is this card?
I know, right?
It's an uncommon construct, not a legendary for 4/4. It's a 4/4. And it's just called Su-Chi.
Yep.
Not the Su-Chi.
No.
Not Su-Chi construct.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, flawed copies of relics from the Thran Empire, the Su-Chi were inherently unstable, but provided useful knowledge for Tocassia's students. So, another relic of the Thran. So, again, not actual Dominari's proficiency or the current, Talarians. It's more Autocassians or Terrasarians, whatever you want to call them.
Pick a name,
exactly.
guys.
And then, lastly, Urza's Avenger, our first likely robot of the game. So, in Antiquities 1994, we have Urza's Avenger, which for some reason isn't on this one. So I'll scroll down to where I have it here. 6 mana. Weirdly enough, is a shapeshifter. Has been errated to be a shapeshifter.
Yeah.
Not the last time we're going to see that with robots, and especially ones that have differing abilities, or as I said earlier, performing changing tasks or design and development. The fact that Urza's Avenger says unable to settle on just one design, Urza designed to create one versatile being. A 4/4 for 6. You can pay 0, have it gain -1/-1, and then either your choice of flying, banding, first strike, or trample. A very cool idea, this idea that it's multifaceted, and it's got a very blueprinty based Amy Weber artwork.
It's a because obviously this is before Changeling was a ability.
Yes.
Right? Shapeshifter's the subtype, and then Changeling's the ability.
Yeah,
right?
It's supposed to be, I think, more like it's like a transformer.
Yeah, exactly. So that is a really pure way of doing a shape-shifting creature, is the idea that it's what's the word I'm looking for? Like modal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's a Swiss Army knife.
Yeah, that's a shape. It shifts its shape. Yeah, it's just obviously we usually think of that as being an organic thing rather than being a mechanical thing.
Yeah.
A Swiss Army knife, as you say, is technically a shapeshifter. It changes depending on what tool you need it to be. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Swiss Army knives are not robots. Urza's Avenger, if you go and look at it, it's humanoid. It basically just looks like a nuts and bolts man, but at the same time, it also, weirdly enough, has a skull and rib cage underneath it. So I don't know if it has a metal skeleton or if, because he's the Avenger, has Urza taken a cadaver, coated it in metal and gone, it's a robot, guys, I promise, it's definitely not someone.
Well, do you know, I think this is real art direction. I mean, as much as any of those early sets had art direction, where they really wanted to have this idea that if Urza and Mishra are like the first sort of like experimental artificers of their day, that is the kind of precursor to them becoming sorcerers, or whatever. That they are still having to base all of their designs on organic material, very much like how who's the Tornos like builds all like who's Urza's apprentice builds all of like the life-size animals.
Or you've got Felden, who constantly keeps rebuilding his dead wife.
Like, well done, Felden. Fucking process your grief in a better way, mate.
Yeah.
Fucking,
Anyway, right. So I think the word you're looking for is simulacrum, right? And we are going to go straight into that. With the next time we see anything robotic, we're talking about is in Ice Age. We have Soldevi Golem. Soldevi Golem looks much more like a typical robot. It's got metal plates, nuts, bolts. It's a humanoid thing. It's even got a little cog thing it has to like winch itself with. Which, by the way, if you're going to give it its own key to turn its own whole thing, put the hole in the front so it doesn't have to stretch around its back and do the whole. That's just mean. I know it's not going to hurt its joints. It's a robot. But then you compare Soldevi Golem to Soldevi Simulacrum. And Soldevi Simulacrum is a 4-mana 2/4 artifact creature. It looks like an old guy. Just looks like it. Weirdly enough, looks like Felden. But it's flavor text. They look human until they bleed, which one means they do bleed. But this also means that this is not a. It's not a construct. Is it? What it doesn't explain exactly how they've managed to make it. But he's an artifact creature soldier. I don't think if it does a robot have to look metal to be a robot?
No. I think that's just the way that they've kind of gone with magic. I think that...
Or would that then be an android because you're covering it with human bits and pieces to cover up the fact it's a robot? Because this guy, I'm going to show you now, the Dan Fraser artwork, doesn't look like a robot. Just looks like an old dude.
But the Anson Maddox artwork is very much a robot. I wonder if... So now I'm just thinking of Data from Star Trek.
Yeah.
He's an android.
He's absolutely an android. Or aliens.
Aliens, the synths.
Yeah. I think it gets to a point of where you have to look still metallic, I think, which is why I wait for artifact creature. But again, that's something that Magic's managed to fuck up when we go through the years.
What about, is it Disney Pixar or is it DreamWorks? Who did Robots?
I don't think DreamWorks.
Yeah.
Yeah, DreamWorks.
They all look like robots.
Yeah. They absolutely look like robots. Then in Chronicles... Gnome, something we don't really see again for a fair little while. We have a couple of gnomes that look just like metal versions of your garden gnomes across the years. We have Clockwork Gnome, Bottle Gnome, there's another gnome, I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but we'll get back to gnomes in about, 20 years or so. And then we get to alliances, where we get our first look at Phyrexians in Phyrexian Devourer and Phyrexian Warbeast. Now, Phyrexian Devourer just looks like a big old furnace. To me, that's not even really a machine, that's a building. So I don't think that really counts as being a robot.
Well, now, come on now. This furnace, so are we saying that, like, nothing that's, like, it has to be sort of bipedal?
Autonomy? Does it have autonomy?
No, okay, so this furnace doesn't, but I guess what I'm saying is like the fact that it is a building of some sort.
We're not talking about in hypothetical, we're talking about the specific thing. Okay, we might get to one that breaks that rule.
That's what I'm saying. I'm just saying don't write off all furnaces.
I'm writing off this one. And then the other one, Phyrexian Warbeast, looks much more like a typical robot. But because it's a beast, I think it's going to have to unfortunately go under the more of a construct side of things. Because this is listed as being a Phyrexian in its errata, but we're going to get to some Phyrexians later that I feel like this is very much not your typical run-of-the-mill artifact, a Phyrexian. And it has two lovely bits of flavour text. Deal with the spawn of Phyrexia cautiously. Only with time may we control them, by Arkham Dagsum, Soldevi Machinists. And then the response is, knowing its origins, how could they have thought they could control it? Serene Relic Bane, Soldevi Heretic. Which is very cool to see like the two sides of and these are two different alternate artworks for the same card that came out in Alliances. A very cool thing that Alliances did, if you didn't know, is there's a few different cards that they show different artworks for to show different sides of the conflict. It's very cool.
Confusing as fuck for any collectors or anyone who's doing.
Same with Fallen Empires. There's 4 different high tides. I think it's the first time they ever did different basic it was the original different basic land artworks and things like that. Very fun, very annoying to collect. And then also in Alliances, we get probably our truest form, really high res image of a robot in Soldevi Sentry. I'm just going to show that. You've probably already got it up.
Yeah, I mean that's like a real sort of
That's
like
Silver Surfer with tubes. That's
a real 80s prog rock album.
and that's for me, and in the flavor text, a terrible invention. What ease is there under the watchful eye of cold steel? This very much for me is a robotic simulacrum. It's very much just trying to be a human. It's looking like that's what it was designed to be, to have the same functionality, but maybe better. Do you mind?
He got you. He got your ass.
God damn it. Fucking cat. I love it, but my lord.
So funny. I mean, I suppose they play with this a lot with the simulacrum. Like Solemn Simulacrum, for example. Obviously, that was a invitational card, right? So it had a human likeness.
Yes.
They were very comfortable making that human likeness beyond a simulacrum robot. They are robots, right?
Yeah. I mean, for this, the typing is artifact creature soldier, and there's a fair few over the years where it just says the type of what it's trying to pretend to be, which makes it feel like it's a really good version of it for it not to be a soldier construct. It's just actually a soldier.
I mean, the problem is with some of these old typings is that you get things like, to go back to sort of Antiquities era, where we have in Legends Marble Priest, which is a cleric artifact creature,
but it just genuinely looks like a dude. It's got abs and everything. Yeah,
who might be made of marble. So I think they're still in this time period. They're really trying to figure out what an artifact creature even is and what that constitutes.
Yeah, well, this is why when I said earlier, it's throw everything against the wall and see what sticks. Like we see a real spread here of them just kind of going, "Hey, this is a column, this is a construct." Because I'd assume a marble priest should have been a golem rather than, but maybe it's by classification of what it's used for.
Well, you can't be a cleric and a golem.
What's the thing? Does it happen to have enough lucidity and awareness and sentience that it's essentially an artificial human, which then makes it an artifact creature, but it wouldn't necessarily make it a robot?
Yeah.
Because it's not a machine.
We're coming up to 5th edition, and in 5th edition I think they've got one of the weirdest entries into this creature thing I think I've ever seen. But,
where are we? How are we? I clicked a thing. I should never click a thing. For what it's worth, I've got like 12 tabs open. We will quickly look, before we get to 5th edition, we're going to look at Mirage, of where we have another gnome, Ersatz gnomes, which look very much like little robot dudes.
Ersatz gnomes looks like if the Power Rangers were turned into toys.
Yeah, it's basically it's Power Ranger gnomes. And then you've also got one of the weirdest ones, which is Horrible Hordes, which we're not going to talk about. It's just a bunch of animated furniture and lampposts and stuff like that, which, why do any of these things exist on Dominaria?
There's an Adam Rex golem from Mirage called Igneous Golem, and it is so 90s. It looks like the kind of wallpaper that your weed smoking aunt would have. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's got that kind of like Sierra kind of color code, sepia color phasing
it's got like a
on
sun above its
face.
It's
one of those like it's abstract as well as kind of being very direct with what it is, and it very much clearly shows like from molten rock all the way then to being a constructed human. Which very much kind of feels to me like what a golem is. You know, it's someone who has enough willpower to be able to. I feel like you need to be an elementalist to be able to make a golem, whereas you need to be an artificer to make a construct. But again, I think that's probably splitting hairs that don't need.
I think
to
if
be
you're an elementalist, you make elementals to be. If I'm going to be that guy.
But elementals made or elementals exist of their own fruition.
Hell. Well, in Skyrim, Atronox is someone.
Well, this is why I specifically didn't want to. This is why the golem thing gets a bit weird. Phyrexian Dreadnought, that's a big ass robot, and that's one of the big that's one of the first ones we've seen where it's like, okay, look, you see all of the different parts together. It's all metal. Again, we'll get to Phyrexia later, but this does feel more like this is something that is piloted. You know, it feels more like it is like animatronic rather than it being something that's a mix of flesh and metal. But again, Phyrexia is muddy. We'll get to Phyrexia a little later. We have a bunch of Envisions. We have Phyrexian Walker, which is very much robotic, and
I kind of feel like the Yawgmoth Phyrexians are like way more explicitly robots than the new Phyrexian.
It's really super steampunk. Again, you can almost see that someone's gone, hey, if I was to design a walker, it would need to have this hydraulic bit, this bit connected to this. It would need obviously to be able to rotate over each of its limbs,
which is kind of wild when you think about walkers in general. Like the concept of a walker in sci-fi or steampunk, whatever. They're always some sort of spidery big leg
because
thing.
you need a lot of legs to be able to keep it up.
But why is it not like some lovely squishy giant marshmallow with a bunch of soft panda legs or something? What's the thing I'm thinking about? What's the fucking animated marshmallow robot guy?
Oh, Big Hero 6.
Hey, him. Why are they looking like that? They walk around.
Sure. I think their robotics are a little bit more advanced than you know, like they're more technologically
I
advanced.
don't know if they could go through trans-dimensional gateways to other planes in Big Hero 6. I mean, I'm just saying.
Okay.
Cool. All
That's
right.
fine. I'm glad that we got to relevant.
Get to 5th edition
culture.
so I can talk about battering ram.
Okay. Good, that was literally the next one on the list.
Battering ram.
Yeah,
Can I talk about battering ram?
You can,
Fuck
please.
me sideways. This is like they were smoking something in 1997, and it wasn't the newly released Pokemon Blue.
How is it a creature?
Battering ram is a 2-mana artifact creature called Battering Ram.
Yep.
And it's a construct.
Yeah.
So they've constructed.
Well,
the
what is a battering ram? What is a battering ram?
Anything. You could be a battering ram.
So what do you need to do to make it a battering ram?
You need to pick it up.
Yep. So what have you done? You've constructed it.
No.
That's what you've done.
No,
because a battering ram is the thing you're pushing, the thing you're hitting, or the thing you're hitting with, and the people that are hitting with it.
Right. Okay. Grond, the magic-imbued Sauron battering ram from Lord of the Rings,
who can now be a legendary creature and be your commander.
Is a construct battering ram because you've constructed Grond.
So.
Right.
So what's the log on the floor?
The battering ram in this picture.
When it's on the floor, when it's not, it's a log,
that's
right?
a deconstructed tree.
Yeah, so then what are you reconstructing it into? You've constructed a back.
This battering ram, this is the Jeff A. Menges art for battering ram.
Yeah.
I've said this word more times than the rest of my life. But it's got banding. No one cares what it does.
I think it's the same artwork in Antiquities as well.
It's a silhouette. This is the Brothers' War, by the way. It's a silhouette of a bunch of people picking up this log and ramming it into a medieval castle.
So are the humans also part of the creature?
No! What are you talking about? That's not an artifact creature then,
But a log isn't an artifact creature either.
That's what I'm saying.
So for it to be... So the artifact is the log.
And it's so explicitly a log.
The creature is all the people holding it. So
no.
You've constructed a battering ram from a log and a bunch of dudes.
No, that would make it equipment. That would make it. Battering ram can be.
Right? Can we? Because this is very clearly not a robot.
Sorry. Is that the debate? I forgot what debate.
Can we move on, please?
It's so clearly a tree. Anyway, moving on.
Wonderful,
you're right. Fine,
lovely,
you move on.
good.
I'm asking the real questions. You can talk about whatever you're doing.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, so we only really got a spattering of other Phyrexians throughout Mirage and Visions. None are really humanoids, so I don't consider them to be robots. But
that's so prejudiced.
I know. But I feel like otherwise it's a construct, and there needs to be a definition.
What's the Google-backed robotics company? The one with the dogs, the robotic dogs.
Those are robotic dogs. They're not robots.
No, fuck off.
You even said it.
Is it literally just called Robot Dynamic or something? The ones, the Killbots.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, the thing that Black Mirror was based off of.
Yeah. They're going to kill us all.
Yeah.
Are we saying they're not robots?
I don't think
Boston
they can.
Dynamic, that's it.
Wonderful.
Okay,
the next one, and quite important, is Urza's block.
Oh, shit.
Where we see one of Magic's most famous robots, Khan, the Silver Golem.
Yeah.
Is he a robot? Is Khan a robot?
No, I think he's so explicitly a golem.
Right? Because he is purely silver who's been, what is it, metallurged into a form.
Yeah.
Now, I would argue that maybe when he gets his spark, well, not even his spark, when he gets Vence's spark, well, when he gets Glacian's spark, and then he gets Vence's spark, at that point, I think you might be a robot.
Is Khan the most selfish being in the multiverse?
I think Khan is fine because he's a robot, so he doesn't feel emotions
he's
too
not
much.
A robot. I don't think that makes him a robot.
Okay, so because he's a golem, right?
But right. So let's go through our checklist of
You're
robots.
right. Let me scroll back up. Go
through the checklist and I'll tell you why.
So does he have autonomy?
Yes.
Sensory input?
Yes.
We find out. Yep. Software?
No.
But he does, because there is like a consciousness within him, right?
The consciousness. I don't have software.
I think a human consciousness is AI software.
Disagree. I think that is exactly the distinction. We are.
But if he's
organic.
if he has basic functionality that then learns from itself through design and development,
through artifice and magic.
But I mean, that's
is Urza there with a fucking sword?
Mate, I'm not gonna lie, it was too broad a subject for me to go and reread all of the stories which tell me all these little
we should pause the podcast now. Read all of Isaac Asimov's books.
All of the Urza block books. Come back, yeah. Performing changes. Yeah, okay, fair enough. He falls within.
But I think the crux is that. And
I think the autonomy is the big thing here, right? And I think that elevates it from a golem to being robotic.
I don't know if he's a robot.
He's explicitly a golem.
I think
But
that's
again,
why he's so precious, because he's a golem
but
with the spark.
is he only considered to be, or not considered to be, but obviously he is a golem. But is he? Because he doesn't use like electricity, right? It's magic that he's. Anyway.
Could they not clearly define these things?
Because I don't think he's a golem by creature type as well. Like he hasn't been errated or anything. I think
it's called Khan Silver Golem.
Yeah, I know, but he does look like a robot. And again, there's a lot of golems back in the day. Maybe this one we can just say, hey, cool, he's a golem. It's stated that he's a golem. We're not going to change it. Thran War Machine. Now this says it's a machine. It's listed as a construct, but to me, this looks like a robot.
No, disagree.
So is this because someone has to be? Does someone have to be in it?
Yeah, it's piloted vehicle.
Is it? I guess is it like Mechatech, like a Magitech, like from Final Fantasy VI?
So I consider any of these Thran war machines or Thran whatevers.
Mm.
Do you remember when you did that video about the Urza lands?
Yes.
And
I had flashbacks when I started getting to Urza's block again.
What was the one? Is it Urza's Foundry? What's the one where the artworks, the snotty artworks, are the ones where he's in the pods that dip down into the volcano?
Mine.
The mine.
That's the mine.
So that's the same.
It's redesigned to be a war machine.
The art direction was really clear. It had these kind of.
So this is a mech suit.
Yeah.
Okay, so even though it would require understanding robotics to build, it is more a suit. So I guess it doesn't have autonomy.
No.
It doesn't have sensory input. You are the sensory input. Okay, but it doesn't look necessarily like you can crew this very easily. I'm not gonna lie.
I mean, this is Warhammer 40k all over it.
Okay, fine.
This is a dreadnought.
Fine. Okay, let's look at Urza's Destiny. Brass Secretary. This guy.
Oh, well,
This guy looks like a fucking robot.
Who the fuck would build a robot and be like, I'm gonna give it a chin and a big like crooked old man nose, and then just
because it looks really scary
like,
without
what the fuck? Like, who's doing that? I get this is whimsical and I get it's Magic the Gathering, but I think we're well past the point of treating Magic like a fantasy IP, and we're applying this to real life. Who the fuck is doing that? That is the most creep ass shit. That's like when they debuted those robotic sex dolls.
Yeah,
and they go,
that wasn't okay.
This is Melissa. She's gonna be your new girlfriend, and you're like, what the fuck is going on?
Good old Melissa.
Like, I didn't realise when I was going to pitch this idea to you that I'd kind of unlock this rage at humanity, but like, what the fuck are we doing?
Yeah.
Like, with all the AI shit, I used ChatGPT for the first time the other day. It was so good. Like, it's like a drug that like hooks, like you're like, this could change my entire life.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
It immediately captures you.
Yeah.
We're all going to die.
It's because it's self-serving as well. That's one of the things that kind of gets it.
The Terminator films are just a blueprint. I would not be surprised if the Terminator films turned out to be someone actually came back from the future and was like, no one's going to believe me. I'm going to write a script for these fucking films in the 80s and just basically blueprint out.
Yeah, a lot of them I feel like are things that could absolutely still be happening. Yeah. So we have a golem who looks like a robot. We have a construct that also kind of looks like a robot. And then to make things even more confusing in this lovely block of Urza's Destiny, we also have Metal Worker.
A construct?
A construct who actually looks very much like a robot, but then if you look at the flavor text at this rate, I fully expect to be replaced by a Clockwork Golem by year's end. So it's a golem, a construct, and a robot. Beautiful.
No, he's saying, so here we go. Absolutely. So, this is actually very clever.
So do you think that he's talking about the golem that the metal worker is creating?
We were literally 30 seconds ago on your podcast app, rewind 30 seconds, it's the big button there. We were just talking about how AI is going to take over and kill us all. Mm-hmm. This is a robot who has too much sentience and too much awareness that is worried about a golem replacing it that can just do his job without any sass.
Yeah. I mean, I like the fact... Well, no. Baron is a dude. Baron is big dude. Makes big blowy up.
Oh, Baron. That's the one who said the flavor text.
He's the one who blew up the everything. But what I like is the idea
he's saying,
that...
Is this a...
Well, this is the thing. I think
a golem?
Well, what I think he's doing is, if you look at the artwork by Don Hazeltine, very cool card, by the way, very expensive, unfortunately. It looks to me to be a construct, which I would say at this point, if we were to errata things, this is a robot. It just looks like a mini Iron Giant. And it is creating mini golems
Yeah, smoother
and
versions of
animating.
itself.
Yeah, just animating out of what looks to just be like clay.
There's some really nice detail actually on this artwork, which I haven't noticed before. If you
The
zoom
blueprint
in,
in the background as well.
the blueprint in the background's cool, but then if you zoom into
the
his
filigree
flank,
on his,
he's got a bunch of engraved filigree.
I've never noticed that before. That is very pretty. And the thing about this as well is that the word clockwork. So this is something we haven't really talked about. If you
TCG player foil,
yeah,
$900.
Yes. Very expensive.
Fuck me.
Yes. Very expensive.
Magic is fucked.
So the thing about Metalworker that I also really like is that the flavor text kind of starts something on that we kind of all had all the way right at the beginning with Alpha with Clockwork Beast. Different styles of robotics. Now, I feel like you can't say that something isn't a robot just because it has rudimentary advancement, you know. And the fact this is a clockwork and kind of can go by itself and do its own thing, I think that's steampunk idea. I think you'd still consider these to be constructs, but they are robotic constructs. I don't think there might be somewhere in sci-fi where there has to be a line before it has to look futuristic enough to be called a robot.
Well, okay, so if you look at Star Wars, because we'll just kind of hit all the big sort of like broadly known IPs, one of the most, I think, well-received concepts in the prequels, well, it was double-handed. It was well-received because I think people liked the aesthetic of it, but I think it was ill-received because the plot points was a big plot hole. You see C-3PO, who is at that point built by Anakin Skywalker, and instead of having his, like, gold-plated whateverness, he's like all wires and like Meccano fucking struts and all this kind of stuff. And I think that idea of like he's very rudimentary and he's being held together by duct tape and the fucking Force or whatever the hell Anakin does in that film. I don't know. Fucking,
good vibes. That's what he goes on. Good
pod
vibes.
Racing. He's doing pod racing. Like I feel like being rudimentary but having a consciousness has like its own charm and is its own trope in fantasy, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think, the idea that you are more nuts. Well, this is something that futuristic robotics, like, we can look at anything that has a bunch of wires and pipes and stuff and be like, oh, that looks like it could probably work. You know, you have to suspend your disbelief a little bit to go, sure, this is hundreds, maybe thousands of years in the future. By that point, they've probably perfected how to put metal together in the right way. But then to have that, almost, that simplistic kind of mind with a super advanced technology, even though the super advanced technology looks really dilapidated, and even a simple mind is actually very complicated and sophisticated. That kind of like juxtaposition, I think is very cool. And I think it's why we quite like R2-D2 versus C-3PO. You know, like we get a really rudimentary, almost binary kind of answering system from R2-D2, but he comes across as being the more smart and suave, whereas C-3PO comes across as being naive and a bit foolish.
I suppose it's when does programming become so complex that it's kind of they can't see the wood for the trees, versus the binary one finds creative solutions because it's a limited resource.
Precisely, yeah. And then this is where I think where it would be interesting to maybe go back and look at how Khan's consciousness and all that kind of thing worked. And again, maybe rereading that Dominaria United story might delve into that a little bit more than if you kind of go and afford the Urza block books, which fair enough, I understand.
There was a comic that I read.
Just took a very big breath to say something, and you pulled the rug on me.
Yeah, when you write the outlines for these things, I get to derail left, right, and centre.
True. I
remember being like, I must have been about 10 because those things came out in like '99, right? Those prequels, and there was a Star Wars Episode 1 comic where they basically retold the films but in comic book form, and they had the scene on Padme's ship where R2-D2 saves the day because all the astromech droids go out onto the
and he's like the last
ship.
one.
He's the last one, and it kind of like, oh, this fucking thing's badass. And she goes, "Thank you, R2-D2." And the way that they wrote it in the comic bubble was R2 ARTOO.
Oh, really?
DEE2TOO.
Interesting, because that's how it would be phonetically pronounced.
It's almost like she's like humanizing the robot.
Yeah. I've seen that before. Yeah. That's quite cute. Again, like there's a degree of. I don't think we really go into it properly with Star Wars, really, like how much the consciousness is independent, So, like, because obviously C-3PO across the entire 9 films builds up all of this knowledge and then has to reset and all this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, he has to do the Buzz Lightyear thing, where he gets turned into a Spaniard.
I was literally going to say the Spanish thing. Well, that's a concept, weirdly enough, to tie it back to magic and, prove that actually I'm a genius and I don't just rail for the sake of it. That concept of giving inorganic things very organic personality is what they explore very much in the writing of the stories for Edge of Eternities.
Yes, and this is why I think up until Edge of Eternities, a lot of what kind of like this is kind of undermining maybe the next half hour and what we've done already. I think a lot of what we're looking at now aren't robots per se, but simulacrums, like of where they don't have a full advanced technology to be able to develop themselves, build up AI, have consciousness, have a sentience, all that kind of thing. A lot of these are just rudimentary automatons that have very basic functionality, but comparative to magic and then comparative to everything else that you're seeing, I think they still do stand out as being, cybertronic versus I make the plants grow. Like it is a very big juxtaposition, and I think with certain ones it stands out a lot more.
So you said we were going to whiz through at some point. We're only at Urza's Destiny, and we're 45 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. So trust me, the last half hour goes very quickly. So we're finally getting off Dominaria. We're going to Marcadia. So it's the first time we're going to see robots not from Dominaria, not of potentially Thran heritage. And one probably starts off very well at being something very strange, and that's Toymaker.
Oh yeah,
which looks a little bit like it's from the Jetsons.
Yeah.
It's got this weird 60s vibe where it's like, robots in the future are going to have really hyper stylization, and they're not.
It's sort of like all bubble body. And it's almost like a skeleton if it was all rounded off. Like
it's very peculiar, and the fact it's got the two goblins in the background because goblins are smart on Mercadia is just the cherry on the cake.
That's so rude to goblins in general. The idea that the only plane in which they're not the subservient species
is where everything's topsy turvy.
Yeah,
but if you look at a place like Ravnica, I think that's not true. You have goblins, you have Krenko, who's the head of and then same in Fiora.
Crime novelist.
Yeah, you've also, exactly.
Right,
so I think we're past that, I think, which is quite good. In Nemesis, we reach complex automaton, quite literally a guy with loads of hands, weirdly enough, horse hoofs.
Yeah, it's another one of these kind of shapeshiftery golems. But, no.
This is funny because this is a golem.
It's a golem.
But it very much looks like a construct.
And it's called an automaton.
Yeah, and this wasteful design cannot possibly be Phyrexian, which is kind of saying that all of the extra bits and bobs are not efficient.
That was a quote from Belb.
It is indeed.
I should remake my Belb deck. That was a sick deck.
I was a big fan of that deck. Had a lot.
That was my that was my golden age of my deck building. Was the Belb.
I hope you just go back to 2-mana commanders, man. That was your main problem.
On the latest episode of EDH Retcast, Joey Schultz goes, "Please stop making 2-mana commanders."
Exactly.
And I was like, "No, thank you."
Well, stop printing good ones, and I will. 2000. We've hit the year 2000. No, that's 3000. Invasion. We're in invasion block, and Phyrexia's full fervor, which means now we have to tackle something. Cyborgs. Are Phyrexians robots?
No, they're definitely cyborgs.
So, is it because of the ratio of flesh and metal?
No, okay, right. So if you're talking about Yawgmoth themselves...
Well, he's just a dude.
They were a flesh and blood man.
Yeah, who then became...
That became
weather.
Robotic.
And then weather.
And then became a giant...
Which we assume is like nanobot technology or some bullshit
became
nonsense.
A giant sex colosseum, whatever the fuck he was.
Oh, and then eventually big destructive death cloud.
Yeah. I mean, a big destructive death cloud can be a cyborg. I mean, I'm just saying. Nanotechnology. They're not robots.
So I think when we first see them, and it's funny because look at the original Phyrexian Gargantua. Now tell me that has minimal amounts of flesh and probably should constitute some form of
this is what I was saying earlier
robot.
About like the first round of Phyrexians were pretty much robots.
Yes, but then you look at Phyrexian Delver because it's a big tank, but it's got a fucking face with pipes going on, and the face definitely going, "Oh God, I wish I wasn't once human."
So I think these are obviously humans that he's basically gone. We're going to pop your consciousness into a.
Yeah. So that's more of an android at that point rather than a cyborg. And then some of them are... Because obviously the idea of phyresis is it converts flesh to metal. So if you undergo full completion, doesn't that mean you are no longer flesh and you are then fully metal and you have transcended from being android or cyborg into being a robotic form? And I'm not going to answer the question now because we're in the early forms of Phyrexia where it's still a little bit steampunk, Geiger kind of... But we'll get to it when we come back to new Phyrexia.
Shall I give you the Google AI overview of cyborg versus android?
Sure, yeah, okay, let's do that. Let's do that now while we're talking about
An
Phyrexians.
android is a robot designed to look human, so Data from Star Trek.
Yep, or the synths, yep.
Yep, while a cyborg is a living organism, often human,
so it doesn't have to be.
He could be a rat or something.
Yeah.
Augmented with robotic or mechanical parts. So these are cyborgs.
These are absolutely cyborgs.
To the nth degree.
Yeah. And I think later in Phyrexia, we'll get to it when we get back to New Phyrexia and Mirrodin, and we haven't even got to Mirrodin the first time yet. But when we get also that, I think we'll start looking at things where I think there are certain factions that you'll consider to be absolutely not robots, and there are certain factions that it's like, okay, dude, this is definitely a robot. quickly, because the Phyrexians aren't robots, right? But then we've also got the attendant cycle, which is where we get the original Iron Man from. Croesus' attendant, which is listed a golem, but I think that's definitely a construct. Rift's attendant, similarly, feels much more like a regular robot.
Why did they live in this world during Invasion Block where they thought, yeah, we're going to give the Elder Dragons these robot attendants?
Yeah, and because the other three are much more like golems. They look much more like clay or stone, and they look like they've been formed naturally. That's fucking Iron Man.
That's an Iron Man.
That's just Iron Man. So don't tell me that, fantasy dragons and wizards. Fucking Iron Man. And it was in it years ago.
Yeah, but you know what? At least they had the balls to put it in as like a nod to, and they didn't just go, fucking Disney,
he's even got 3
fucking
Infinity
shower
Stones.
us in money for half a fucking IP.
Hey,
we
man,
can't even put on arena.
Disney was alright in 2000. It was alright. It wasn't the big
Disney's
colossal
fine
thing.
now. It's fucking.
It's way bigger
it's
now.
Fucking Hasbro, that's the problem. Yeah, I said it. Fucking Hasbro's the problem.
Wow. Okay. Good. Cool.
If we could get a preview card, that'd be really cool. By the way.
So we can now move all the way through several blocks, all the way through to we get to leave behind the brown border. So up until this point, we have been on cards that have the horrible, disgusting. I actually quite like.
Holy shit! Have we not left the fucking brown border?
No, we've just hit 8th edition and Mirrodin block.
This edit is already 50 minutes.
I know. So I only bring up 8th edition because of Pantagia Golem. The first original Pantagia Golem looks like the one on the right.
Could you?
And the Pantagia
for the listener.
Yeah.
Nathan keeps showing me his laptop.
Yeah. Because I told you to get the Scryfall up. We're going to talk about a bunch of cards and their aesthetics. How is the card on the right? How is Pantagia Golem from Mirage, an artifact creature? It's got leopard wings. Leopard stretched wings. It's got like a bit of a mask to it. And then you compare it to Pantagia Golem from 8th edition, artwork by Kev Walker, and it's an Evangelion. It's an
Evangelion with like
it's the most
Icarus wings.
So I would say this is the point of where we have seen something that is high quality artwork, so it's not weirdly abstract or trying to do something that's trying to super push in terms of like horror or anything like that. This is just straight up a high enough res for that time, well articulated animatronic human. And this to me is the closest we've got to what I would call a quote unquote robot.
I think the art directors in 2000 just had more fucking guts.
Right, we start getting to planes that start looking futuristic instead of retro, and by that I mean we're not looking at steampunky stuff. We're not looking at things that are a little bit Geiger. Geiger is fairly futuristic. We're looking at things that I think go beyond what we in our current God damn it, cats. Beyond what in our current world would be considered to be like advanced technology.
Well, okay, so
or at least of the time. So if you're talking about 2003, 22 years ago, technology was a lot less advanced, in terms of the hop, skip, jump into like animatronics and stuff like that.
So what I think the trend was, and obviously we're getting into areas where like, I was 20, I was 15, I was 10, whatever else. I think there was a period of fantasy sci-fi where the trend for imagining fantasy sci-fi was to keep the fantasy element, you have to keep it fairly old school and looking like it's as if medieval times became sci-fi at that point.
Yeah. Say, for example, Altarian Juggernaut is like wooden... Yeah. Like a wooden constructed Juggernaut,
like, what
it
if,
doesn't
like,
look like... It looks like you can set it on fire.
If goblins and elves suddenly got fucking technology,
yeah,
right?
Which is why it's quite strange that we start with, like, Brothers War kind of era where they're using hyper-advanced technology.
Well, they're using hyper-advanced for, like, the idea of it being... It's like cassette punk or, like, laser punk, where it looks like if the 60s then got sci-fi.
Yeah, it's retro-futurism.
Whereas, obviously, when we hit the 2000s, Y2K aesthetic comes in hard, and we kind of have the lay of the land with, like, the advent of, like, Apple products and whatever else, where we start to understand with the sort of ever compounding acceleration of technology. No. This shiny pebble touchscreen thing is what is going to look like in the future. This is what's going to look like is the thing.
Holograms and things like that,
so
kind of, right?
Things like fantasy, things like sci-fi, whatever kind of like fiction had to catch up and be like, okay, maybe a starship doesn't look like a giant pirate ship.
Yeah.
Maybe it looks like this sleek mirrored spaceship.
It's like when we did the Star Wars, did the prequels, right? And it's like suddenly everything's sleek, shiny, zoom pod racer kind of thing instead of being
futuristic than the fucking
clunky junkers kind of thing. Yeah. I think it's interesting you say that because it does feel like this is the turning point, because then we go to Mirrodin, of where we have considerably more robotic kind of style, and potentially some of the most I think probably the most robotic style we've had in Magic up to this point. You've got the Mirror, Which are, I think, all by... The Thopters, I don't think, are robots. They are, machines. They are more constructs and machines, I think, than they are robots. I think the Mir can classify as being robots.
They're tiny, as our friend Rich would say with his Mir deck. Tiny robots. I love tiny robots.
Yeah, they're just little friends.
They're little guys.
And we also, in Mirrodin, also get the replicas. Now, these are specifically, probably simulacrums pushed to their furthest degree of where... And each one has got their... So, elf replica, goblin replica, all those kind of ones. So the idea is that they are a metal form of that creature type. Because on Mirrodin, there is obviously the mycosynth, which essentially slowly converts flesh and adds metal to it, because Memnarch builds all of these portal gates from different planes to man his metal world, because he started going crazy because he was bored, because Khan created Argenta, made the Mirari into Memnarch, and Memnarch was like, I need things in my world to govern, so he created all of these soul traps, pulled all of these different races in, and then over time they metalified themselves. Not counting any of those in the robot side, because they are all naturally developed cyborgs, I guess, if we're going by this loose terminology that we've established.
Yeah,
they're mutated metal, but it's not added, anyway, whatever. Space fantasy. Whereas I think the replicas are specifically simulacrums. We also then have some of the most robotic looking robots. Grid Monitor by Arnie Sweckel. That's very much a sleek, neon lit, smooth curvature to it. It's not very jagged. It doesn't look clockwork. It looks much more mechanical. It's hidden. All of the animatronics are hidden behind these sleek finishings. We also have Spin Crusher. I'm going to show you now quickly. Spin Crusher looks like it could come from Big Hero 6 universe.
Yeah, it looks like a
They both
Segway.
look like they could be. Yeah, it's almost, it's like Segway, and this came out, in 2004? So this is very futuristic looking, almost like, again, Star Trek-y kind of style, art style to their robots.
Yeah, I went to, when I was 16, was I 16? I must have been 17. Maybe it was 17. I went to Rome with my then girlfriend, and Segways were fucking everywhere, and it was like people had discovered this futuristic technology, which is just physics.
It's just it's just a scooter.
It's
just a scooter. And then you've also got the Arcbound creatures, which are all listed. It's funny because the ones that don't look humanoid have no creature type whatsoever, but then Arcbound Overseer has the Golem subtype, whereas I think Arcbound Worker, if I can find it, this is what I mean. It hasn't got Arcbound Worker. Why doesn't it have Arcbound Worker? It's no different from any of the other Arcbound creatures. That's fucking stupid. It's been the whole day, man. Originally it was just artifact creatures, the whole thing, and then I had to start going through set by set because it just started missing some. Composite Golem, Memnarch, not artifact creatures apparently. So Arcbound Worker is a construct, whereas I forgot what the last one was called now. Jesus Christ, I fucking hate doing this. Whereas Arcbound Overseer is a golem, and they both have the same thing, which is metal bits and bits connected by electric energy. The fact they're not hard connected via joints and stuff, I think, is what stops them being robots and starts making them into, they are just constructs, even though they're not fully constructed.
Ooh.
The Overseer does look like it's much more made out of stone than, say, the Worker is. If you see here, this looks much more like stone.
Okay, right. So, but hang on. So the clue is in the name, though. Arcbound.
Yes.
Arcbound is the fact that they're bound by some sort of lightning energy.
Yeah.
So the material doesn't matter. It doesn't if I'm an Arcbound technician, right, and I find a fucking leather sofa in bits, and I think I want to construct this leather sofa back to being a sofa again, or a couch, as you would say in the States, and I use my Arcbound magic. Surely that's that's Arcbound couch, and that can be in the same family of cards.
Mm-hmm. So why is one of them a golem and one of them a construct?
Well, they're all constructs. They should all be constructs.
So we're saying that the fact they've changed the clarification from the Overseer and the Worker from golem to constructs is probably an oversight.
Yes.
And would you agree that probably all of them should fall under robot?
No, because
Okay.
I don't. I think a robot can be Arcbound. Arcbound is the means of construction,
Right, but it
not
doesn't
the means
automatically
of
make them a
autonomy.
robot. Okay. Lovely.
That's about as smart as I'm going to sound.
And then my boy Darksteel Colossus. Somehow also not an artifact creature by the definition of putting artifact and creature into Scryfall, by the way. Just so you're aware. Nearly missed Darksteel Colossus specifically because This fucking search
There's
engine
Blightsteel
sucks.
Colossus in there.
I don't believe Blightsteel Colossus got listed either, no. And Darksteel Colossus is listed as a golem. Now, I would argue that all Darksteel, by nature of how Darksteel is formed and manipulated, I think probably all should come under golems, because you've kind of got to use metallurgy to reform them rather than artifice and hammer and heat.
So it's a construct absolutely made by the manipulation of mana and magic, and can't be constructed
because
via
Darksteel is such a hard material
artisanal means.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm kind of going by. Even though
I think I buy that. I think if you have to
even
create
if Ginger
something via
Taxus could
magic,
somehow manipulate it, because obviously Tezzeret needed his body from somewhere.
Okay, so
the
all right,
Phyrexians were able to do that.
Maybe to backtrack against my exact thought, if we take planeswalkers like, say, Saheeli and Tezzeret, they are artificers, are they not?
Sorry?
Saheeli and Tezzeret.
Tezzeret, yeah, they're
Are they
artificers.
metallurgists?
No. I mean, I think technically Tezzeret uses metallurgy, but he's a natural artificer.
So if he uses magic to bend the will of Darksteel,
That's exactly what. Well, Saheeli definitely uses her will to bend things. We see her do it all the time.
So
she can
if she was to make
reform
something
things.
out of Darksteel, is she making a golem or a construct?
I guess it would be a construct, but that doesn't necessarily make it a robot. I think. Oh, that's interesting. I don't know how Darksteel Colossus was formed. That's the thing. I don't know if it was by magic. And in fact, it's got steam engine pipe chimneys coming out of its shoulders. Make me feel like there is an engine within it that requires combustion.
Yeah. Do you know what? We're an hour in, and maybe I'm starting to realise that
it's a bit more complicated.
art direction versus hard lore
it's tough.
Doesn't always combine.
Yeah, I went back and forth on a lot of this. It's why it took 2 days. I went back and forth on a lot of this. Because then you look at Darksteel Gargoyle, and there is no way that's all jaggedy and more.
Okay, right, no, but all right, okay. So I sort of bought into your premise about Darksteel being like you have to use magical means, which means it can't be it could be a golem, because golems are generally constructed through magical manipulation. But we're talking about Darksteel as if it's like that's the precursor to it being a magical item, where it is.
But it is.
But it's a material.
Yeah, but the material is inherently magical.
But if I use a furnace or some sort of like fossil fuel propellant to drive the engine that drives the power source for the Darksteel Colossus, that doesn't make it any less of a robot, because everything needs a power source. Humans need a power source through calories of the food they consume.
Yeah.
So the fact that it's using some sort of like pollutant that needs an exhaust port doesn't make it any less of a robot or a golem or whatever. That's just how it's powered.
But do golems typically need like a secondary source of fuel? Don't they usually just run on the animation of magic?
Yeah, I mean that would make it a golem.
Yeah.
So maybe it shouldn't be a golem.
Maybe it shouldn't be a golem. Yeah, exactly. See, it becomes.
Fuck!
I know it's fun, right?
No.
Aren't we having fun?
No, this is the least fun.
Right.
Out of
So
155 episodes of.
So the funny thing is, we look at that versus say Sundering Titan. Sundering Titan to me feels way more like a robot. Mostly because of how it's constructed.
No, I think it's a weapon. Sundering Titan. What does Sundering Titan do?
Blows up lands.
So it's a weapon, which I don't think makes it a robot.
Okay, so the newer artwork definitely looks more robotic. But
yeah, it looks humanoid.
But even the original one, I feel like that is robotic.
What is it? It's a golem. I think it's a golem.
It is a golem. It's listed as a golem, but that seems way no. But there's like piped work and stuff. There's a drill. No. There's a drill attached to it.
Exactly. It's a tool.
But that wouldn't make it a golem. That'd make it a construct.
Yes, but all right. Okay, so here's where I think we're starting to trip up a little bit. I feel like. Shut the fuck up.
I've been thinking about this for 2 days, man. I'm ready to go.
Well, I've been thinking about it for 1 hour. So. I think the problem here that Wizards of the Coast, the trap they've laid for us in this thinking, is they've used construct as that's the willy-nilly one. Golem and robot and whatever else are ones that could be more specific, but whenever they've not bothered to decide, they've just stuck construct onto it.
Sure.
A fucking shoe is constructed.
I just think it's interesting that in Mirrodin specifically, you have certain arc bounds that don't have any creature type at all, and then they specifically added construct to one and golem to the other one, so to specifically not have uniformity in 3 different ways across just one specific subtype of artifact creature. So it's interesting that there's no consistency just within that little that little sample group. So I think in the grander scheme of things, there's going to be a lot of contradicting information. Thankfully that's a metal plane, so there was lots of things to talk about on there. We can bounce through a lot of them now.
I hated that.
Ravnica. Weirdly enough, there was no mechanist or artificer kind of guilds.
No, I guess the Izzet were very.
Izzet start get a little bit later. So... We get a couple, but realistically, yeah, it was more like steam and water, and that just provides more for like chemistry. Yeah, exactly. It's like they mix elemental stuff with electricity.
Weirdly, as a narrowboater, as a boater, that is how I live my life. The Izzet are the most futuristic of all the guilds.
Mm-hmm.
They would be in real world like situations if Ravnica was like a visitable place. They would be the ones building narrowboats, even though narrowboats in our world seems like a kind of retro-y way to live.
Yeah, well, I think anything that hits a certain amount of industrial revolution, it kind of starts looking like it goes to the ones that aren't. We talk to trees.
A little bit of derailing again for me. So narrowboats run off of diesel engines, which, even though the kind of narrowboat community is kind of a blend of sort of dads and sheds, I'm going to say, and hippy drippy sort of, I want to be off grid and environmentally friendly. You still have to contend with the idea that you're using diesel, albeit almost fuck all.
Yeah.
So like I've got
which seems much more sustainable.
It is in a weird way. Like I've got a 180 litre tank. I can go for 2 years off of that tank without needing a refill. My point is, they have got electric narrowboats that are purely solar or electric based, which can be very sustainable. And it's not funny to the people who owned it. One of them like exploded last week, like full like. Holy shit, this was a fully electric narrowboat with an electric engine and a huge battery bank.
Well, that's the problem, is the battery pack. The battery bank is the issue, right? Because it stores, and then if it does go...
I've got 3 leisure batteries and 1 starter battery, which is, like, way too much, really. But, like, in a weird way, my kind of diesel-guzzling 4-battery narrowboat has caused less environmental damage in its 50-year lifespan.
Wow, then that has been
one electric narrowboat. Anyway, I don't know why I brought that up. I just thought it was funny. Not funny for them.
So the only one really in Ravnica that we see is Bronze Bombshell, which is literally and it's kind of a meme card. It is a bronze female coded robot. It's a construct, but I think in this its formality is so base in what it's supposed to do. Where keep walking over there, look sexy, have pimple, boom. You know, it's more of a joke than anything. But it is interesting to see that they have, canonically, even back then, got something that looks very much like an articulated automaton. Time Spiral, we get our first assembly worker, literally called Assembly Worker. Taps to give +1/+1 to an assembly worker. You'd think with Time Spiral we'd get a few more mechy kind of things. We don't. However, this one has like bulbs on the back of it. It's a little bit almost Innistrad-y in the fact it has like I don't know what you call it, like Tesla static kind of electrical charge chambers.
What is it that they... So there's a bulb you can buy that is it just called a Tesla bulb? No, it's called an Edison bulb. So there's like an old school light bulb that a lot of escape rooms used, because again, I used to work in escape rooms. This is your life with me whilst you're doing all the work. So I used to work in escape rooms, and a lot of escape rooms have like a steampunk aesthetic, and those kind of very fragile glass oval bulbs that you find with the sepia tone with their really windy filament are called Edison bulbs, and it is that kind of like old-timey electric aesthetic.
I love the sound, that sound it makes. That's one of my favourite sounds in like ever.
Really interesting, that Innistrad, which is the most firmly, this is like post-medieval Germanic fairy tale dark fantasy. Also Frankenstein.
Yeah.
So they have the concept of electricity.
It feels very... And it works because for us in our brain, we just synonymise all of that kind of era.
Horror, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Even though those two things are like periodically very far removed from each other.
They're like a century apart.
Yeah. Cool. We get to talk about scarecrows and Lorwyn. Scarecrows aren't robots, right?
No.
They're basically golems, right? Straw golems. Straw constructs. Cool, let's move on. Alara, Esper. We actually finally get to another plane that deals with...
They fuck around with scarecrows so much, and you can't keep track of it.
I was going to put it in, because every time we see them, like, each time it's just like, it's more wicker, and it's more like they're enchanted than they run on actual...
That's it, they're enchanted.
You know, and I guess that's the big difference for me when it comes to golems, is golems is enchanted natural matter rather than being something that has been hammered and shaped and put together.
But the scarecrows, I know we'll move past it quickly, but I 100% feel like scarecrows have their own personage, whereas golems
and scarecrows I think are weirdly enough way more constructed because they have individual parts and bits to them, and it is just that something wills that together rather than someone putting their will into it.
Yeah, I agree.
Alara, we get Esper, Ethereum fused humanoids. They just fall under cyborg, right? Or at least they fall under the Mirrans with its. We just naturally fuse into it.
So I feel like the hard definition is yes, they're cyborgs. Cyborg not even being a creature type.
Well, we'll get there. It is one. We'll
is
get
it?
there. We'll get there. Oh yeah.
Oh, is it a fucking?
Shut up! Stop spoiling it.
Oh, it's one
Stop
of them.
spoiling it.
Do you know what?
Shut up!
It's
Talk about
spoiled magic.
Talk about
me.
Esper.
Spoiled
Talk
magic
about
for
it.
me. I kind of feel this is the Dark Steel problem, where it's like they have some stupid fucking adamantium, improbability,
vibranium,
whatever metal,
and it's myth because this is the thing is for me this is magical manipulation or transmutation rather than smithery. Because I feel like as much as these are artificers, they feel much more like metal wizards. They're just wizards who work with metal rather than being artificers. I feel like if you can magically manipulate, I don't think, say for example, Saheeli is much of like say an engineer as fucking can't think of a good example off the top of my head now. Like any of like Urza Mishra, any of those kinds of people. I feel like if you don't get greasy while you're doing it, you don't have to get hands involved. You just go, hey, hands, do the thing.
Do you feel there's some sort of like class warfare thing with artificers and metallurgists?
Would have loved to have had this on fucking Vryn.
Yeah.
That'd be a great place to have that.
There's this idea that artificers have to get engineering degrees, have to understand robotics, have to understand things like maths and tensile strength and all that kind of shit. Propulsion systems, whatever. And then metallurgists are just like, I think about it and it happens.
Well, this is the third path. You had Mishra and you had Urza who went with their own kind of like differing opinions of how to like do it in a poke myself in the eye, human ways. And then the third path was all these people like Hercule and things being able to do it through exceptional effort because magic wasn't really a thing that people talked about or studied then. But using magic as the other means instead of having to go, I can build it with Power Stones are inherently a little bit magical anyway, like, charged full of energy. But the way that Mishra and Urza were doing it felt way more rudimentary, whereas Hercule and people like that were doing things in a much more, instinctive way.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes learning takes different forms, there's different kinds. There's theoretical engineering, there's human engineering, there's actual, mechanical engineering. There's lots of different types of engineering, but they are all still trying to do the same thing, which is build, innovate, invent, that kind of style.
One of my favourite cards in Magic is Hercule's Recall.
It's a very cool card. It's a great moment.
I used to use it in my Brudiclad deck. Again, part of my golden age of EDH deck building. I've been talking about 2-mana commanders, talking about Saheeli.
She's got a good version.
She's got the 2-mana legendary creature commander. That is basically Brudiclad.
Yeah, to make a copy of something.
And it's basically, I don't have any money right now. Not to talk to people about my fucking financial situation. Life happens. When I get money again, I'm like, fuck, do I do a 2-mana Brudiclad deck? Because that Brudiclad deck slaps.
Mm-hmm. And then having it on something that's 4 mana cheaper, boom, boom, boom. I think you'd really enjoy that. I think it satisfies.
Almost the only way I can play.
I think it also satisfies your Orvar itch as well a little bit, where you just want to keep copying cool things. Yeah, I get you.
Ethereum Abomination is the kind of full push of this idea where we don't agree with the Esperites being robots because they're somewhere cyborg animatronic. Ethereum Abomination is purely a horror that is just different scraps of metal all put together and then is of itself autonomous. And the flavor text being, it was given life by the Ethereum of 100 slain Esperites. So the idea that all of the Ethereum bits of all of these people that didn't work and they fell off, then all together formed to make a form of Ethereum that has no flesh. And that, to them, is an abomination because you need to have at least some amount of flesh and some amount of Ethereum to not be a weirdo. For them, there's too far. And maybe for them it's because it's not attached to a human soul.
No wonder Tezzeret came from Esper. They're all a bunch of gatekeepers.
Mm-hmm. And we have nothing really for another year until we return to Mirrodin and Phyrexia, where we have to kind of talk about Jin-Gitaxias and his great synthesis, Glorious Evolution. And I think that the great synthesis, the purpose synthesis, the glorious evolution. I think the purpose of that is to change you from being in any way flesh to the full form of synthetic, because that's it, synthesis, right? To then no longer be biological. And at that point, I think no matter what at that point, you don't have any flesh to be an android or a cyborg. I think at that point, you're just a fucking robot. Now, does a robot have to be, by the definition of years and years and years ago, of being a slave, a thing that has to do the thing you tell it to do, and it has to be beneath you, and it has to take instructions?
Right, okay. Well, no, because when we jump all the way forwards to Edge of Eternities,
which isn't actually that far away in the grand scheme of things.
Thank you. No, that concept is where we're trying to stamp out
from.
Precisely. My argument is that I still think that no matter how far Phyrexia goes, they will still be considered cyborgs, because they still start from a place of organic matter. So there's always this concept.
So I guess even as the Praetors were birthed, they were still birthed, right? They were still formed from some chrysalis, some what the fuck, grub.
It's a really classic trope in sci-fi and fantasy, which is seen across lots of media. I mean, even some niche stuff, like there's a Garth Ennis graphic novel called Transmetropolitan. If you guys are into things like The Watchmen, check out Transmetropolitan. Or even like the Hell, is it Hellraiser or Hellblazer? I forget, the John Constantine comics in DC. There are ideas of people who transcend the organic and go into computer systems. I mean, it's a very Isaac Asimov idea, right? You still have to be an organic thing to have the electro pathways to transist into a cybernetic system.
Sure.
So Jin Cataxius, for all of his kind of, the grand evolution, the
great synthesis.
Thank you. The synapses he's created as an organic being to be the basis to transition into full automatonhood. They still have to be organic, right?
I mean, that's the thing. I guess we don't know where the Praetors originally were birthed from. There's certain ones like saying,
who the fuck could know that?
Well, because the thing is, they just kind of formed, and even when you look at the background on the MTG wiki, it's very much like each of them was created or birthed from under one of the sun's influences, and that's what dictated its natural evolution. And the idea of evolution kind of then undercuts robots, because robots shouldn't be able to. They might be able to develop, but they shouldn't be able to evolve, because they shouldn't be organic enough to be able to have that kind of ability to become beyond their own functionality or to advance beyond their functionality. However, if something like Ginger Taxius was from its I know it's fucking this.
The cat's attacking the washing. Yeah, that's man. Precious.
If it was originally like hey, we've got a husk, and then we're going to instill that husk with a consciousness, and then allow it to develop under this concentrated influence of blue mana, what happens? And then Gintataxias happens. I guess it's a Ship of Theseus kind of question, right? Of where if we do start with something that is organic, and we keep replacing all of those organic parts slowly but surely, because if you did it all at once, it wouldn't work. And eventually, you replace the last organic part with the metallic part. Is that thing still what it was before? Even without any of the organic parts.
But it wouldn't exist without being birthed organically.
It wouldn't have, no, but it no longer has any of that, and none of the organic part is there anymore.
But is a butterfly not then related to the caterpillar?
It's no longer a caterpillar.
But it was related to the caterpillar.
But yeah, metamorphosis is like, I'm going to break down the body into a primordial soup and then reform it to have fucking wings, because nature is mental.
But the soup wouldn't exist without.
No, but I think that a soup goes through a transition, and it's no longer then a caterpillar. But it's still the same species, right? So that's the thing, is it's still the same species, but I think in its classification is now different, because a bug by definition has wings, right? And I think a caterpillar is still considered to be a bug. It's just the grub of the bug. But does that mean that the human was always supposed to be developed into the robot? I
just sort of feel like if we just keep diving into these tropes, which obviously magic loves to pull from, HAL 3000, was it HAL 2000? Oh my god, I haven't seen 2001 Space Odyssey in quite some time. HAL from 2001 Space Odyssey. Yeah. Or the Kevin Spacey voiced AI from Moon.
Oh god, yeah, Moon. What a film!
Great film. If you can get past Kevin Spacey.
Mm.
But it is a great film. Those AIs, which were literally like they are AI in the purest form. The reason we find them so spooky is because they are totally detached from any organic matter. I feel like the kind of, again, a bit of a clever writing turn from Magic is that they keep the Phyrexians being at their most fundamental organic. And it's like they're a self-defeating paradox where they keep trying to assimilate and to try and like robotify, but they can't, because at the very essence of their core, especially when you look at like the red and green Praetors, they're so based in. I mean, fucking.
Well, I'd say Urubras is probably one of the more robotic because it ends up, it's a living furnace,
Well,
right?
if you look at Elish Norn, all of her
well, with the flesh,
are teeth,
but then
and sinew.
Well, that's the thing. So that's when we come back again, right? Which I think we'll touch on that very, very, very quickly. When we get to it. I think the porcelain, like porcelain Legionnaire, for example. You look at that and you go, for all intents and purposes, that looks like a robot. Because even the things that would be fleshy are porcelain, and then all of the other bits that are in between are very much robotic, pipey kind of thing. So I think at a glance you'd look at that and go,
it's sinew.
But it's not sinew, not on the porcelain Legionnaire. It's metal. And it's coloured to be metal. It's not coloured to look like Elish Norn's, which is red and gory, in between, which I think she does just for I think she does that for effect. I think she knows what would look striking and what would make people go, oh God, Jesus, better take her seriously. I think she'd know that, so psychologically that's why she allows herself to look more flesh-like, because I think otherwise she probably wouldn't want to. So yeah, I think this is why Phyrexians I've kind of left, I've left them to the side. It's a thing that can keep kind of coming into the conversation because it does start, it's a thing to compare against, right? But I do think they have to be kind of considered separately, considering the whole thing is converting metal to flesh and flesh to metal, all of that kind of thing. I think it makes this very complicated. So we can kind of skip past Innistrad, Theros, and everything like that because they don't have enough advancements to really be doing anything robotic. Fiora has a few more typical gearwork-based robots with a generic soft steampunk style. It's not super advanced. Ether Searcher is very much similar to what we're going to get to in a moment in Kaladesh, of where it's a robot that has gears and cogs and shafts, and then it also has a glow within it that makes it look like it has natural autonomy. That is a construct. We also have Clockwork Librarian, which seems a little less like typically humanoid, but very much is just a robot. That to me is a robot. Yeah. They've done this a lot with librarians. There's a fair few like robotic librarians, which is quite funny.
Librarian is a wild concept in Magic. They've done about 3 or 4 cards, which is 3 cards more than you'd expect them to do for a robotic librarian trope. I
guess the idea is that they want, because even this Law Seeker is another one from Fiora, of where it's just a robot in just looking at books. I guess they've got the scientific, because all a librarian needs to be is be able to do a catalogue, right? A library by itself is essentially a giant narrative computer. Tarkir, back to Zendikar, back to Innistrads, which feels way too soon when we talk about it literally back to back in paragraphs. But the what they say, by robot chronology, there's not a lot of time between the Innistrad sets. And then we get to have our first proper Artifice plane since Dominaria, because I don't think Mirrodin counts as an Artificer plane because it is metal itself. Kaladesh, Filigree and Innovation are the 2 names of the game here.
Just sorry, pause.
Yes.
Is the plane of Mirrodin not a robot?
No, it's because
Is it a golem?
Mirari isn't a robot in of itself. It is a it's basically like it's like a power stone. It's like a super advanced power stone where it has the ability within it to be like, it's like I imagine it kind of like stem cells, of where it's like the very primordial beginning, and it's just got around a really, really powerful orb thing, which allows it then to.
Okay, but the plane of Mirrodin was constructed by Khan.
Yes, from the Mirari,
using the power of the Mirari.
Yeah.
So is he not using the power of the Mirari as his metallurgy magic to create a planet golem?
Yeah. Well, because originally it was only Memnarch, and he basically went, here's an artificial plane. It's not got any life on it because it's artificial. I'm going to turn the rest of the Mirari into this guy that's going to look over it, even though there's nothing to look over. Memnarch then made the mirror, then went, this isn't enough, and then he found a way to bring actual life. So yeah, he essentially is a metal worker, because he was a constructed thing that then constructed something that then constructed something.
Okay.
Which then, for me, then elevates him beyond Golem, because he of himself had enough power and enough consciousness to then be able to create a whole fucking plane. But he is a Golem.
Well, fuck him, I guess.
So we have accomplished automaton in Kaladesh. We see Kaladesh now. We see the finery of advanced technological ability, right? People that are able to construct things by hammer and chisel. Obviously, we've got all of the vehicles and everything, which shows a degree of mechanic proficiency.
Engineers.
We have all of the skyships. We have the fact that obviously ether itself is essentially what allowed all these things to spurn forwards, because it still feels like it's...
That's a power source, right?
It feels like it's from like the 1900s or the 1800s or something like that.
So steampunk in of itself, if we're talking about like different punk aesthetics that, you know, whatever, punk, diesel punk, like steampunk itself is if Victorian England with its industrial revolution jumped forward, but they didn't want to make Kaladesh, because Kaladesh thematically followed Shadows over Innistrad block with Shadows over Innistrad and Eldritch Moon. So they wanted it to be a lighter, brighter, celebratory set versus the dourness of that Innistrad set. So they took steampunk and Indian mythology, merged it together, and they used ether as the power source, steam, electricity analog, however you want to sort of, you know, fuse it together. And that's how they pushed it out. Yeah. So in terms of cultural advancement through technology, it's not the iPhone, it still very much is the, you know, like steam powered train or whatever, like they have trains and blimps and whatever else. But in terms of like, you know, futurism, it's still a futurism set, because it's a look at how the future could be through a certain lens.
Yeah, it's essentially if
that was a really clunky way to say it.
It's an ether-infused industrial evolution.
Yeah.
And what I like about that
is more futuristic than most other planes.
Yes, but obviously the backdrop of it doesn't feel like the modern world, like say Duskmourn does. Yeah. And what I like about this is that you have things like, as I said, accomplished automaton, which by itself is saying that, hey, we've now got really good at building robots. This is a robot that has a mini robot of himself on his shoulder. He's that good. He can make simulacrums of himself. And then you even have Lita, mechanical engineer. So this is an artificer who is of themselves an artifact creature, very clearly a construct. Like, this is not, oh, I'm a little bit metal. This is, I'm a robot, and I have enough consciousness to have a name, and I myself can then build and create zeppelins, you know? So we've got to a plane that's able to create, essentially, life with personality, with autonomy, that's able to go beyond its own design, that's be able to do multiple different tasks. We've probably hit now with Kaladesh, saying that Lita is from the not dual decks, not battle bond. What's it fucking called? What the thing when you duel the packs against each other? Jumpstart. There we go. It's from Jumpstart 2022,
Pack Wars?
Which is 6 years after.
We should play more Pack Wars.
I know we should play more Pack Wars. Which is 6 years after the original Kaladesh, but this is from the same time of Kaladesh, so I think we kind of need... And Kaladesh, weirdly enough, didn't have a lot of different robots to look at. It had lots of different constructs, and by this point in Magic, we've seen various different forms of machine and mechanics, so I kind of specifically wanted to look at something that looked humanoid. And the fact that Lita is from this same kind of era and is very much an advanced mechan, that has, you know, is bipedal, looks human for all intents and purposes. Plus, you've got the Gear Hulks. They very much feel like robots rather than just constructs.
Yeah, I guess the Gear Hulks really aren't piloted, are they? They are their own things. They're just these giant fucking constructs.
Indeed. And then we finally now get to... We're going to have to start dashing through this, because otherwise it's going to take even longer. A brief conversation about Unstable, introducing Cyborg. So at this point, we could just errata everything appropriately, but that would be a headache. Imagine going back and changing every Phyrexian to Phyrexian Cyborg.
And he interjects with something. I hate the fucking whatever those.
And it's kind of what's funny is that Robot originally came from an unstable, an unset. I mean, we got... What was the original? The original was actually RTO Dread Scavenger from the Heroes 2021, which came out before we got to Unfinity and Clown Robots, and that's technically a robot. Flying Death Touch, Soul Tie, makes squirrel tokens. What the fuck were they thinking? We can now skip ahead a bunch of years to the next real plane with significant advancement, especially compared to its last showing all the way back in 2022. So it's after its original showing all the way to 2022, so a full 6 years, we can talk about Evangelion properly in Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. So the fact that the original Kamigawa we didn't talk about at all, there was no artifact creatures to talk about, there was nothing robotic in any way, shape or form, to now probably the most advanced technology that we have seen, I think, or at least comparative, I think, to Edge of Eternities, when you start looking at some of them. At first glance, we have artifact creatures that are by proxy cyborgs, and I mean this is in like all of the random Aki and the random humans that are artifact creatures because they've got fucking weapons in their hands. That's just called being
those are pure cyborgs.
that's just called being equipped. And then there's literally vehicles that are not robots because they require pilots. But there's also reconfigure equipment, which are by themselves creatures that then can be reconfigured to be equipment, which feels very robotic to have that.
Yeah, I feel like this was a really like big flavor push to be like, okay, they are artifact equipments because they have no use really outside. Because they kind of introduced this idea of like having a drone. So they've had drones in Magic with like, I mean, I think I mentioned it incredibly briefly at the very start of the episode. You have like Pentavus with like the Pentavites. So you have these like little like offshoot
things that break
robots.
off. Yeah, we've got like things like Triskelion as well. That's a similar kind of style.
100%. Yeah. So I feel like this is what they played with, and that was the way that they kind of translated it through the mechanics of Magic, which I think worked very well. Now, looking back on it, Neon Dynasty was a fucking hell of a set.
I think when I was thinking about like this, I was like, this is some of, and like, you know, spoilers, like some of these cards are the most advanced engineering technology we've seen, including Edge of Eternities.
Like shit like
to
holograms
have that next to or being kind of the next thing that we've seen from one of the most traditional sets in Magic, in being fucking ninjas and samurai, and there's very little, it's all like fucking weird Studio Ghibli style kami. To have that and then go, oh yeah, also evangelical mech titans. Now I don't know if anime pulled a massive amount of weight here by just allowing us to go, yeah, those two things in my brain, I like them both, it works together, fuck it, why not? But it's the way to have spirit kind of thing, and we have to go, hey, we can put spirits within robotics and have sentient life because all it requires is a soul, and spirits are souls. But then the fact that they say that these robots need souls to be able to be functional is quite a statement compared to a lot of the other things in Magic which haven't touched the whole, hey, life and robots, until like say Edge of Eternities, where we talk about sentient automatons versus robots. Like there hasn't really been a statement of, hey, do they have souls? I mean, apart from Khan being the only one that's really like, oh, maybe we should probably start thinking about the metaphysics of how consciousness and sentience works within robots.
Yeah, I think I'm going to tread carefully here a little bit as a white European talking about Japan, because that's such a played out trope that I don't necessarily want to fall into the trap of being a fucking weeboo. I think it is uncontroversial to say that Japan is a country that, having the history that it's had, is a very sort of clear and recognisable culture of being something that venerates tradition versus new technology and futurism in a way that's sort of very clear and laid out in one breath. Whereas I think if you look at like other continents, other countries, things are a bit more mystified and sort of, you know, I don't know, blurred. So I think when you do a set like Neon Dynasty and a set like Kamigawa, which original Kamigawa had its problems in terms of its cultural interpretation, versus Neon Dynasty, where it was one of the first big pushes in the real world for Wizards of the Coast to go, no, we're bringing on like cultural advisors and this is how we're going to do the set and blah, blah, blah.
We don't want to misrepresent what we're doing.
Yeah, the feel of the, I don't know, traditions of a country like Japan and the other influences they pulled through are something that is almost timeless. So when you look at things like anime media or like manga media or any other kind of Japanese like popularist media, there are certain themes and cultural touch points that they use throughout, say, something that's set in Edo, Japan versus something that's set in like Tokyo futurism.
Yeah.
And that's a very high-minded way to say, I think, if you're going to look at any country in the world, Japan's the one where you look at where you go traditional versus futurism. They merge together.
And it's funny because I guess when we did Kamigawa originally, however well or badly they pulled off the cultural side of things, when they go look at it again and go, well, how do we modernize it? And they go, shit, well, we just modernize it. And then to have, it's funny because Japan has always had this kind of like really good thumb on the pulse of like, this feels really far futuristic, but also kind of believable, yet also somehow a little bit diesel punky.
Yeah.
You know, things like Cowboy Bebop is a really good example of something that feels like it could be happening now. It could be happening now, but it's also got stuff that feels really futuristic. But anyway, and it's funny because you've got even cards like Iron Apprentice, which looks
much more like your typical hunky-dunky simulacrum that needs to help you in the thing. And then you've also got Mech Titan Core, which is just literal Voltron. And it's kind of funny that they had both these things, and it's even got the fucking little samurai fucking half-moon thing on it. It's so cliche, but because it's so on the point and it works for its own typicality, it works within the realm of magic as well. And now we look back at Kamigawa and we go, well, yeah, we've also got Brothers War, we've also got Edge of Eternities. Like, this wasn't the first. And then you even look further back and you look at certain cards like, say, Toymaker and stuff that you go, oh, okay, they've been doing this. They've been following the trope for a while.
Any of the cards that like are directly referenced to the Weatherlight Saga, there was skyships with laser beams. Yeah,
the legacy weapon was super weird and cool. And I think even when you look back at like Croesus' Attendant, stuff like that mech is just as complicated and weird looking as some of the mechs that we see, like Mind Leech mech and things like that from Kamigawa. I don't think that they're that far apart, despite being quite far apart in terms of like the mind. And I think something that I've skipped over a little bit here that I was gonna come back to kind of in like the epilogue, but we might as well touch on it now, is whenever I don't have a lot to speak about and we move on to the next set, sometimes we are moving 5-6 years. Sometimes we are going 7 blocks, or even five blocks, which back in the day, obviously 3 sets. There's a long time period of where you don't have mechs and robots in the game. There's, I think, another one coming up of where it bounces between like Eldraine and then Bloomburrow and things like that. It's like there are so many different areas or so many settings that don't work to have robots within them. And especially when you were spending 2 or 3 sets in a row on these specific planes, like Shadowmoor, for example, Lorwyn, that's a 4-set block where the only artifact creatures you got apart from 1 golem were scarecrows. So there aren't going to be any robotics for that whole year. So there might be grand schemes of time of where you might play for 2-3 years, and then suddenly you've got robots, and you go, what the fuck is this? That's not magic. I'm sorry, you just happen to sit in a little bubble, and there are quite a few of them of where there weren't advanced robotics, because you're not in planes that have an industrial revolution on them. You're in a place like Theros, which is stuck in mythology. You're a place on Innistrad, which is stuck within, as you say, Germanic centuries ago. Like there are certain frames of human history that Magic is looking at, because that's essentially what it's doing. Is it's always looking at a certain aspect of human history. Ixalan looking around the conquering times, all of those kinds of things. Of where if it doesn't hit a certain threshold of where steampunk is acceptable, you're not going to get the automatons. You're not going to get the robots. You're not going to get the constructs. You're going to get more golems and things like that, because it just doesn't fit with the aesthetic of the plane. Speaking of, then we get to Shifty all the way through to... Oh, right, sorry, I nearly missed it entirely. Infinity. And the first real use, whether ironically at the time or unironically, definitely in retrospect, of actual robots.
Boo.
Actual factual robots.
Boo unsets.
I know, but this is where we actually get what I like. I want to look at and be like, I don't think they were taking it very seriously when we look at this particular... when we're looking at this particular set. We'll give me just a moment to get there.
We're on like an hour 35.
I know.
I don't mind this being a long episode, but it's the longest one by far, and that's saying something.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I told you it's going to be a hefty. Kaldheim was the other one I meant to mention that we didn't mention. All right. Have I gone through Strixhaven as well? Lovely. God, we have skipped. I like it.
Well, Strixhaven is funny because that also has like mechanical.
It had the
librarian.
It's one of 2.
Cody.
One of 2 artifact creatures. Yeah, but Cody's definitely anime. I wouldn't count that as, it's not a metal. It's a book. Even though it's an artifact creature. What is it? Is it a construct or a shapeshift?
I have the EDH deck. I should know.
So it doesn't matter, right? So that's why. Yeah, it does seem like it'd be a construct.
Well, you have to make a book. You have to bind it.
But has it been bound, and was it always alive? God, put my pages back together!
It's wild that I have a Cody deck, because I never think of it as being a Cody deck.
Yeah, it's just your polymorph deck.
I didn't even build it. It was a gift. Cody is a construct.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Legendary artifact creature construct.
Cool. So if we are stopping on Unstable, like the fact that it's the official robot thing, and we're going to talk about this very briefly in Duskmourn as well, because I feel like a lot of these fall under like toy category, which I can't believe that's also an official creature type. A lot of them don't feel like they are robots in like the fact that they are literally defined as such, but they do feel more like constructs. They're weird clown animatronics that don't feel like they have their own personality. They feel like they're wind up toys. They do a thing. The one clown band is literally just one of those old percussionists that has the drum kit on his back, and I don't feel like they kind of come under the automaton. kind of thing. Even like the Celebrate Thousands, all of those kind of things, they all just feel like memes. And obviously they are, because it's Unfinity. It wasn't supposed to be taken very seriously. But it's kind of a shame that these robots, compared to the ones from Edge of Eternity, or compared to a bunch of constructs that we've seen throughout Magic, really do not feel like robots. They feel like something else. They feel like the joke that they are. And then we get to do something very serious, and this is actually now full circle. I did say we were going to do it at the beginning. We are back at Brothers War with, now, I guess in the history of Magic, we are kind of essentially going back to the very early years, back to Antiquities, and this is kind of them going, well, if we look at Antiquities and all of the terrible artifact creatures and the terrible way we made the Dragon Engine a 1/3, and things like that, maybe we should redo this, because there was only like 10 artifact creatures and half of them were arguably not very machiney. And then we get stuff like fucking Still Seraph, which it doesn't even bother calling it a construct. It doesn't bother calling it a golem or a robot, even though robots weren't really an official thing here. It just goes, no, this is an artifact creature angel. We've done so well at making a robot angel that it is just an actual angel.
Well, the Brothers War was an interesting set with those, because they had several of this kind of cycle where it was, you had like the wizard...
Arcane Proxy, who is a wizard, yeah.
All those arcane proxy style cards, those kind of level up cards. Was it level up? Was the mechanic?
Not on Earth. Prototype.
Yeah. It was like a kind of level up like esque mechanic.
Yeah, you could play it for as a smaller creature. Or as
I
the
guess
bigger
it made
creature.
sense to make them just the creature type, because it was the way of that set translating what those.
And it's also a
types were.
throwback to when the Ocean Soldier, for example, one of the first artifact creatures from years back, that was an artifact creature soldier.
Yeah.
And it wasn't saying, oh, it's been constructed. It was like, no, it's a soldier that happens to be made out of metal.
Mm.
And I think this is interesting, because this is kind of, we got to the point now where, again, full circle, we've hit the original. These are the original mechs of Magic. If we don't consider Thrantime to be canon, because we haven't seen it in an actual Magic set, this is a reimagining of the first ever proper expansion of Antiquities, and this has more advancement, or an equal advancement, to Edge of Eternities. It has an equal advancement to Neon Dynasty, which I think are the two pinnacles. And yet this is a representation of the first period of Magic we ever actually got to experience. Which I know, yes, you're saying that you could argue, well, yeah, well, they redid it and made it fit in with the aesthetic. It's like, well, this is what I think it was always meant to be like. But back then, they didn't have the scope or the perspective or the ambition or the experience to be able to do what they are able to do now with modern technology.
There's nothing wrong. If you have a core mythology within your IP, there's nothing wrong with kind of going, look, we made this in the mid-90s. It's now so popular that this is how this is represented now. So we're going to go back and kind of show newer players, fresher art directors, all this kind of shit, what made Magic what it is. Pokemon's fucking done it. Star Wars did it. So many big IPs have gone.
Simpsons did it.
We kind of look back at what was, and instead of it having been this kind of weird quirk that kind of is the core of our IP, we're going, no. We care about these stories. We just want to make sure they fit in with what the IP is about now.
Again, because if you wanted to build a Dominaria deck, and we're like, oh, I want to take some cards from the Brothers War thing, and you went back to Antiquities, you'd be like, well, I can't fucking use any of these. They're really expensive, they look weird as fuck, and they're terrible.
My only gripe with the Brothers War circa 2022, is it 22?
You nailed it, yeah.
Nice, because it was just after COVID was coming out.
Yeah, sure,
I remember. Is that they didn't go hard enough into the kind of... I know this is a bit... People are going to be angry. They didn't have enough legendary creatures that were just like spacesuit flight man. Like, I want a steampunk, diesel punk deck, and so many of the legendary creatures from Brothers War are not quite that.
There's a lass, and I can't remember now, it's deep in the research, who made a dragon, like Terra or Tara or something like that, and I'm like, why don't we just get a Tara legendary card?
Yeah.
She makes fucking and she makes one of the most badass robot looking dragons. Like, he looks like Chromium, a little bit like Ramos. I'm like, and we never get a single other card from her, and no other reference from any other card. I'm like, she makes fucking dragons. This was the perfect opportunity to give her a card.
There's an uncommon that's like Flight Corps Captain or something similar, and it's literally like a mustachioed dude wearing iron armor and flight wings. I'm like, I want a whole deck that's that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Sky Captain, the World of Tomorrow in the deck. Yeah, you look again, even still Exemplar is like, it's got a cape, man. Like, we're at the point now of where these are creatures from back in the day, and even it says the flavor text. Reports differed on whether the figure was an automaton or a mage, mostly because few who saw it survived.
Yeah.
But the fact they couldn't tell the difference because it is that close a simulacrum to a human shows that even they nailed the advanced technology back all the way back in Dominaria before the Ice Age, which they'd already nailed all the way back during the Thran Dynasty. And this is why I think it's a bit of a betrayal or a bit of a what's it called? A bit of a failing, because anything that happened on Terrasare automatically has humongous mechanical proficiency based on the fact that it all comes from that's the science continent, and it's more interesting than when we look at other planes to see like how far they've caught up or what kind of a situation that they're in their advancements. Phyrexia again, did they do anything new to the style or genre? I was like, not really. Yeah, I think the only thing was the Great Synthesis. We start seeing all of those the fucking tubey eye thing, whole things, and that to me is like, okay, now we're moving into it. Fiber optic. Yeah. That is now advanced robotics in my mind. The Great Synthesis is the only one of the 5 that's kind of got to the point where I'm like, you are now beyond Yawgmoth Phyrexia.
An IMAX.
Yeah, you are beyond Yawgmoth Phyrexia. You are now in full like development mode. You are I Am Legends.
Well, there's the reality chip, the fact that they're making chips.
Yeah, but the fact it's also still based in a jellyfish. The fact it's got that again. We're starting now to get into the point of where it's starting to be like, what would you consider? Does it just have to be synthetic? Fiber optics, do they count? What does the material have to be for it to feel robotic?
The problem is that things like fiber optics are still based off an idea of like having like an iris and optic nerves, and like it's kind of a real world idea of going, well, it's a tube with information passing through the tube, which is still very organic, and it's like
they eventually get to a point of where you are just fully replicating a body, an organic system. So I was thinking about things like Kevlar and stuff like that. Like obviously, if you want your robot to be able to move comfortably in the joints and stuff, it's not going to be made out of metal. It's going to be made out of a different synthetic material, like rubber. I'd consider rubber to be something that would work for robots, but then also as a mage, what craft can cover rubberurgy? What would that fall under? Would that fall under someone who's more of an elementalist or someone who's more of an artificer? And that's silly questions I ask myself when I do these episodes. Cool, another full circle moment. Lost Caverns of Ixalan. What did we get in Lost Caverns of Ixalan that we haven't seen in a really long time? Gnomes! Now, these gnomes feel much more like robots.
Fuck gnomes.
What is wrong with gnomes? Wow, that is not a stance I expected you to take.
This is what Magic does to differentiate itself from D&D in a way that I think is totally unnecessary.
Fair, fine. I mean,
why is it that gnomes in the Magic universe?
Yeah, this is another Naga snake thing of why did you have to find another thing to separate out? I will say that Tetzin, Gnome Champion, does feel like the next stage up from Golem. They feel in between Golem and Construct, of where they are still cogs. And I think the only reason I keep them in here is because this is very much the same structure that the Kaladeshi have, of where it's synthetic material. In this thing, it's stone, some metals, and then you fill it with, I can't remember what it's called, the weird purple energy stuff that was in the Lost Caverns of Ixalan, instead of ether. So instead of it being something like Ethereum, where the metal itself, or Darksteel, where the metal itself is being converted into something of a machine, filling it with fuel, this is that you use the magical fuel to kind of yada yada the construct around it. I think the gnomes are far more rudimentary because Ixalan isn't very advanced. It's still, sitting in pirate times.
Well, yeah, I think the materials they're working with stone, right?
And also a tiny little bit of influence from the Fomori.
Oh yes, sure.
Because the Fomori, I can't remember. There's one flavor text on one of the cards in Ixalan flip cards where it says something about how the Fomori tapestries or show of machines from the past that they've tried to replicate.
This goes back to my arc-bound point of going, it's not necessarily material that you're working with, it's more about how you use it.
Yeah,
right?
And the purpose you're using it for. Dinotomaton. Oh my god, that sounds sick when you get it right. And the fact that Sahili would love you. And it's what I like is that you've got a Kaladeshi Artificer influencing the surface, but also in the centre of the fucking Lost Caverns, you've got a dinosaur gnome. It's like it's funny that when they go back to planes, they go, oh yeah, there was this weird science in the middle of the plane all along. Don't worry about it. And you're like, wait, how does that work? Because there are quite a few of them. And then we go back to Ravnica. Murders of Karlov Manor. There's not really anything much to talk about there. However, there's a couple of what I like to call now, and it kind of works also with Sahili, of where, how is Sahili in Ixalan? Omen parts.
Yeah.
So the fact that now most planes can now have artificers from other planes come to them and then boost their mechanical proficiency and engineering proficiency, and essentially becomes, hey, the whole multiverse now has science. Which is a little bit shit and a little bit I hate it, but I like the fact that Coveted Falcon, Barbed Servitor, and Krenko's Buzzcrusher all look like, sorry, not even the Buzzcrusher, sorry, Gleaming Geardrake, all from Murders of Karlov Manor, look like they've had, okay, so this is what Ravnica was like, and it's had enough influence from the other planes to go, oh, so now we can actually do that with technology? and you actually have a mechanical bird, you have a mechanical gear drake, things that you otherwise wouldn't have seen on Ravnica before because there wasn't an artificer clan, or guild, sorry, that we'd already experienced. We then also have to do shitloads of scrolling through things like Transformers and Doctor Who, because obviously they have robots. It's a lot easier to classify those, stupid asses. And then we finally finish up on, because Outlaws has nothing beyond a train, I guess big score, very quickly. You've got no artifact creatures whatsoever. They're mostly just a bunch of artifacts and then a bunch of creatures. But the Simulacrum Synthesizer shows a big, like, synthesizing a robot at the bottom of it. Esoteric Duplicator, you put an artifact in one side and it somehow duplicates it on the other. How it's doing that through science, I'm not sure, but obviously he's still able to create robots. And then Legion Extruder, also able to make 3/3 colorless god, but these are golems, and these very much feel like they are just advanced versions of the golems we saw from Mirrodin, and advanced versions of any other. I just put some fucking magic into stone and it does some stuff for me. And then we get to Edge of Eternities.
So I suppose what we've learned over the past 2 hours
Sorry, it's such a long episode. Look, robots is a really broad subject for Magic.
is that okay, so Magic doesn't have to cut down on certain creature types to make sure it's a bit tighter, and things that are like they've thrown it in because it's like a cultural touchstone or because they want to differentiate, and actually it's not like different and whatever else, this and the other. Robot might actually be an advancement where you could take out construct, and it's actually like they might not do that many more constructs because robot seems to me
to cover that.
And it's also within the context of Edge of Eternities, because within the lore you have things like drones and constructs and whatever else.
Automatons. Yeah.
Automatons. Robots are the ones that have personage, whereas automatons are the ones that are like just functional beings. A robot essentially covers all of those things that if they were to errata, they would errata things like, I don't know, fucking Solemn Simulacrum or Khan or the Praetors to be robots in a way that they weren't before.
So a question to this then is Clockwork Percussionist, which is a toy. Would that then become a robot? What makes a toy and a robot a robot?
Well, I think this is the fuck up. Is that actually it's not the fact that Edge of Eternities introduced robots. It's the fact that the prior sets close to it, like Duskmourn and Aetherdrift, like the Medicant Core.
Yeah, what is Medicant Core? It's a construct, right? Apparently you didn't spread it right. How do you spell it? I'm just going to put core in, find it that way. Scroll. Burp. Oh, because I've not got it by... Okay, cool. Oh, no, it's a robot.
Okay, so robot, yeah, because I guess that was where we first saw robots proper.
So Aetherdrift kind of saves itself from the idea that they did introduce robots then.
That was the because I guess even though we didn't see things that looked exactly like the Medicant Core, Edge of Eternities went, hey, this world, this plane, quote unquote, edge of whatever, is big enough that the Medicant clearly came from here, even if we don't see their specific place of the Edge of Eternities.
So maybe Duskmourn didn't fuck up, because what they're doing with the toys is that they are possessed.
With vindictive spiritual energy, yeah. Instead
Whereas
of being
the
programmed,
robots
there's no
in
directive.
Aetherdrift and Edge of Eternities are...
Oh, because it's fucking Valgavoth, isn't it? Valgavoth is putting the malice and everything into the toys.
The constructs are the robots with personage. So I guess ultimately what I'm trying to say is that Aetherdrift and Edge of Eternities have got it exactly correct, and the previous 25, 26 years of Magic fucked up.
Well, so I guess the thing, so what we've seen, right, is that they haven't stopped throwing spaghetti. And they've been doing it for a really long time, and they've wish-washed, even within, again, that Arcbound fucking case study. It's funny how they have really, like, there's really blurred lines. Sometimes they're very definite in what they're doing, and you can look at that and go, absolutely, and then you look at the card next to it and you go, well, that just fucks everything up completely. The fact that we've now got to a point, and this is why I mentioned halfway through the episode of where, if we were to now go back with the creature types, robots, construct, golem, cyborg, would we then go back and change? Would there be a bunch of changes? Would there be a few things that swap? Or is it just easier to leave it as it is now? Have the specification now? Because I think seeing robot on some of these cards from back in the day would look weird. There are some like Mirrodin, which I think would be completely correct because it is an artificial plane.
You can't go back to fucking Ice Age and like
No, and I don't think that would work. And that's why I like when we saw Brothers War, they didn't call it an angel robot. They didn't call it a wizard robot. It was just, it's an artifact creature. It was constructed. It was made. It's not a construct. It is an angel. It's the closest facsimile you can have to that thing. And that's the thing. Edge of Eternities, it's not some mages trying to make the best possible thing. This is thousands upon thousands of years of technological development. This isn't just some fucking, I guess this is okay. No, this is refinement. There's been studies and everything. They know. They've got a full Planeswalker guide for this set. Was one of the most the most detailed and most not self-contained, but it covered its own arse and covered its own basis, right? And it managed to do it in a way that made everything quite believable, despite being many thousands of years in the future. The ironic thing is, you look at things like Brothers War, and they look very similar, even though these mechs were based on the Thran Empire from thousands of years in the past. So across maybe a 10,000 year gap of history, it turns out robots are all kind of the same.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you listened to that. If you did get to this point in time, because that's 2 hours of us fucking thought dumping.
Well, no, it's go away. Go away. It's 60% Nathan trying to talk about robots and 40% Andy talking about his life, which is nice because there's a little bit of
a whole bottle of wine during this fucking podcast.
Hey, look, there's been a little bit of something for everyone here, which is quite nice.
I'm just trying to ground the whole thing.
Yeah, I might not do such a broad subject the next time we go, hey, should we just talk the shit about this random thing from the latest set and then also look at the rest of the fucking history of Magic?
God help us.
I know. I mean, to be fair, this was a hefty one, and it was a lot longer than I expected it to be when I was doing the research for it.
No, I think it deserves it. It's wild. It's such a wild time for Magic where I feel like with Universes Beyond, with all the fucking like unsets that kind of still inform how UB and the main sets kind of function, we are going through such a tumultuous time in what Magic is and how it translates itself. It's only natural that these things are going to be, some things we're going to find go backwards or like don't quite fit, and other things we're like, shit, why have we not done this the entire time?
Do you think like the fact that many of the Universes Beyond sets recently, like say Transformers, which are robots, the Necrons, which weren't, they were zombies, but like, you know, they're
you had synths in Fallout.
Exactly, you have synth in Fallout, and then you also had in Doctor Who, you had like things like the Cybermen. The fact that we are now doing other IPs that do the tropes, and they weren't afraid to go, we can use the hammy vernacular, the hammy terminology, because it works with we're doing Doctor Who. They go, oh, actually, you know what? If we do it emphatically, then we can actually just do robots in Magic and it won't be weird.
Oh no, 100%.
And that's why, like, we've got to a point where they did all these weird other series and stuff that makes everyone kind of go, hey, if that's okay, let's do an actual proper space robot set, do it good, and people will like it. And shocking enough, what happened? People liked it. I think it had a real chance to be shit, especially when you're considering it's a year of where we had dragons and Final Fantasy, which are two very different things, and then you had this random fucking space set that could have missed the mark entirely. I'm glad that it was like, because it does show that even though you have the naysayers that go, oh, these things shouldn't exist in our game, they have always existed in our game, and they will keep doing them better. They will keep hitting the nail on the head a little bit finer. And I like the fact that we've had a full fucking 2 hours of like, what the fuck is all of this, to then end up on something being like, hey, what they're doing now I actually quite like.
I agree. Let us know what you think at mtflavouring@bsky.com. You can email us at mtflavouring@gmail.com.
There we go.
I haven't done this in a couple of weeks.
That's true.
Thank you for listening. This has been Magic the Flavouring.
We'll see you soon.